Good morning, everyone. 2 months ago, I stood before the General Assembly and Tennesseans and delivered a State of the State address in a day where the coronavirus had not entered Tennessee. We hadn't had a tornado. We were in a very different day when I delivered that State of the State address. But I made remarks toward the end of those comments, and I want to remind us of something I said then. This was a quote from my State of the State. History remembers fondly when leaders do the right thing, especially when it's hard, and especially when the politics of the day don't offer any rewards. And my hope is that history records that we were leaders who worked together, who stood firm in our individual convictions, but who remembered that differences should not divide us. I sat in the House chamber, in the gallery of the House chambers last night, and I sat in the gallery of the Senate chamber last night, and I witnessed that very thing happen. Leaders coming together, doing the right thing, even though it was hard, and even though it didn't offer a lot of political reward, because it was the right thing to do for Tennessee. I'm standing on the stage with leaders of the General Assembly who did that, who represent members of the General Assembly who did just that. And I am very grateful and very proud for how we, in just a very short period of time, have come together and made very difficult decisions, many of them disappointing, setting aside pieces of legislation that were incredibly important to members in both chambers, but knowing that that agenda needed to be set aside, even if for a time like this. We have done what I believe is in the best interest of every Tennessean, and that is to continue this state on a course that will provide fiscal stability for Tennessee as it faces potentially an incredibly difficult economic time. We don't know what lies ahead, but we do know that we have a responsibility to prepare for what lies ahead. And I feel certain that that's what's happening every day through state government, through the General Assembly, through the leadership, and I am proud to have been a part of that. We have much work to do ahead. We did set aside but hold in place the agenda that we will take up in the future. But for now, we've done what was right for Tennessee, and I'm proud. And I want to let leaders speak to that as well. Lieutenant Governor.
Thank you, Governor. It's a pleasure to be here. It's a very difficult time for Tennessee, but I want to point out the fiscal stability that the state has had over the years, and it's through leadership by Democrat and Republican governors, Governor Bredesen, Governor Haslam, Governor Lee, people like Doug Henry, and people like John Bragg, who built the foundation that enables us to weather the storms that come. I know each time when I give a talk about the budget, I talk about, the last thing I talk about is the Black Swan event. Something that we don't know that will come, but usually we have to be prepared for, or always we have to be prepared for it. And unfortunately, this year we had two, with the tornado and the COVID virus. But I very much appreciate during this session, as well as other sessions, the cooperation that we received from Cameron and House leadership and the Senate leadership, Senator Johnson and Senator Yeager and others on various committees, as well as our Democrat colleagues. It was a time in which we came together and hopefully have addressed the immediate problem, and as well as got a plan going forward to address whatever comes our way. We've got a very substantial rainy day fund, and we're putting more money in it, where we'll have almost 10% of the general fund will be in the rainy day fund. But I want to thank you all for the job that you do, and I very much appreciate the interest and diligence of the press that's here. Thank you. And it's my pleasure to introduce my colleague and a good friend, Cameron Sexton, who leads the House and took it at a very difficult time and has led it through an even more difficult time, and done it with great leadership ability. Cameron.
Thank you, Lieutenant Governor, and thank you, Governor. And what I will say is 2 weeks ago when we were in session, we didn't know what it was going to look like. We thought we would still be here till we finished up, usually at the end of April, early May. What I will tell you is what's happened over 5 days in the General Assembly with the administration to prepare a budget that protects Tennesseans, that helps Tennesseans, where both sides of the aisle came together for the benefit of all Tennesseans, was an amazing thing for us to accomplish in 5 days. These are troubling times and unprecedented times. Our greatest generation has made sacrifices for us over the years, and in the days ahead, we as Tennesseans are going to have to sacrifice even more and make some very tough decisions. Making those tough decisions will help protect us now in our communities, as well as protecting our greatest and most vulnerable generation. We have the right leadership in place to handle this crisis, even in the darkest days, whether those days are still before us or in the days ahead. There will always be a light that's shining through, to know that when we're through this as Tennesseans, we will regroup, rally, and sacrifice to make our state even better than it was when we entered in. This budget that we passed put a lot of money for those times ahead of us, so when we come back in, we can reassess the needs of the state of Tennessee and help in any way that we can. Also, in the days ahead, I know that Tennesseans are looking for what's going to happen. And let me just tell you, I know the governor is working diligently with the General Assembly, with his administration, to help with things like personal protective equipment, to help with how to handle the uninsured people of the state of Tennessee, how to help small businesses get back on their feet, how to help Tennesseans in general to get through this crisis to where we land on our feet when we come through it. I'm confident that we have the right governor, the right administration, and the right leadership in our state to get us through this time. And when we do, we had a conservative General Assembly who decided not to spend today, but give some money to help the governor in these difficult times, to help with public health, to help with education, to help with mental health, to help in a lot of areas, to help with cities and counties to get back up on their feet. We have the resources to help them now, but we have a lot of resources to help in the next few months when we come out of this. It was an honor to work with the Lieutenant Governor and the House leadership, and to work with the governor and his administration. And with that, I will turn it over to Senate Majority Leader Jack Johnson.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, Governor, Leader Lamberth, Lieutenant Governor. I said last night on the floor, I also said it in Senate committee, that You know, I'm not happy. I don't think any of us are with what's going on in our state right now with the tornado, with the coronavirus. Tennesseans are scared, and they have every right to be. But I tell you what I am happy about. I am happy about the fact that the governor and his administration, the General Assembly, was able to come together in a very brief period of time and set everything we came into session planning to work on to the side and focus on the matters at hand, critical matters at hand. And that's what we did. My, what a couple of weeks difference it makes from where we were just a short time ago. It's our job to make sure that the administration and state government can function and perform critical functions for the people of Tennessee for the coming fiscal year. And that's what we accomplished in the last 5 days. We had to set that bold agenda that the governor proposed in his State of the State. We had to set that agenda aside. We had to set aside the agenda of all of our fellow members who come into every legislative session with good public policy ideas that they want to focus on. And we had to set all of that aside and focus on the matters at hand, and that's what we did. And I'm confident that we've equipped the governor and his administration as we go home, we go back to our districts, we've equipped the governor with the necessary tools and the necessary resources to address the knowns and the unknowns that are going to face us in the coming months. I take great pride and pleasure in the fact that when we put that budget up on the board to vote last night, we got a unanimous vote. Democrats and Republicans came together and passed a budget unanimously that none of us were very happy about. But it's a good budget, and it's one that addresses the needs of today and the coming weeks. And it also sets aside money for the future, which is equally as important, because we don't know what this is going to do to our economy, to our revenues, and so we needed to take as conservative an approach as possible, and that's what we did. We will be back. We have recessed until June 1st, and I hope that we're able to come back at that time and to continue to address needs that arise between now and then, as well as resume consideration of some of our bold public policy ideas for the people of Tennessee. So I want to commend my fellow senators and thank them for their hard work. We put in a lot of long days, long hours over the last several days to get this done. I want to thank my friends in the House for their hard work, and the legislative process worked. It's not pretty sometimes, but it works, and we get the job done for the people of Tennessee. And so the last thing I will say is I will encourage people, everyone who's watching, to practice social distancing and wash your hands. We will get through this, and we will continue to be the great state of Tennessee for many years to come. I'm going to turn it over now to my friend and colleague, House Majority Leader William Lamberth.
Thank you all for allowing us to just share a little bit of news with you today and address you. And I want to, before I begin, recognize Chairman Mike Stewart, who is here in the crowd today as the Democratic chairman in the House. You know, we've had some pretty good differences of opinion on policy. But over the last few days and weeks, I'm so very proud that on the House floor and in the Senate chamber as well, Republicans and Democrats alike have come together to meet the needs of Tennesseans right now. Everybody on this stage today has talked about how much has been done to place an agenda on policy in park for right now, and that we're going to recess until June 1st. I had tried to prepare some remarks for today and thought about it on the drive in, and nothing that I wrote down really met the gravity of what we're facing right now. We don't know what the next few weeks or even months are going to bring, but I promise you this. As our fellow Tennesseans, I can guarantee you that we in the legislature and with our governor, whom we trust explicitly in this circumstance to help lead us through this, will arise from whatever comes in the next few weeks and months, and together we will push forward. We have been ready for this. We have led for a time such as this. We never could have imagined that this would occur. But hang in there. Be with your families. Focus on your communities. And focus on your faith. In our family, we pray every night. And my son's 8 years old. And it breaks my heart that he prays every night that he'll be protected from the coronavirus. words that he never should have even known existed. And in each of your families, I know that that happens as well. I place my faith in God, and quite frankly, today, we have all placed our faith in our Governor, Bill Lee. And I want to thank him for his leadership during this time, and I want to thank both of our speakers and my colleague Jack Johnson in the Senate for their leadership. And again, Tennesseans, we merely ask that you follow the directions of our medical experts during this time, because we will get through this together. Thank you.
Thank you, William. Thank you, all the leaders on this stage. Thank you, Tennesseans, for giving us the opportunity to stand in the places that we stand. But I thank you as well for responding in the way that Tennesseans have. We saw it happen a few weeks ago with the tornado, where the eyes of the nation saw how Tennesseans are unique and how they step up and how they respond to challenges like others may not. We have that opportunity again. And the reason that I feel confident is because we've seen it time and time again, because we're Tennesseans, and that's what we do. That's why individuals will own responsibility for their own behavior, responsible behavior. It's why companies will step up and follow guidance and suggestions. It's why businesses will do the right thing to make sure that their neighbors are safe. It's why churches will engage in their communities to protect the elderly and to assist their neighbors who have lost a job or suddenly need child care. We in state government and in local governments, in municipalities and counties all across this state, we will do what we can to provide an environment where Tennesseans can thrive. And then I feel confident and certain that Tennesseans will do just that. We will continue our updates on coronavirus and on the impacts that it's having and the economic impacts. We've had daily press briefings on that, and we will continue to provide information, because the press provides information to the people. And that is a process that is critical and that will be very important as we move forward and mitigate the spread of this disease and mitigate the economic impacts of the spread of COVID-19. So thank you all for being here. Particularly grateful for leadership, not only what they have done, but what they will continue to do in the days ahead. As has been said, our work has only just begun in addressing some of these greatest challenges, and we will all be working together with all Tennesseans to make sure that we move forward through this crisis. So happy to take your questions.
Governor, I have a two-part question. Kind enough to answer each one individually. They both have to do with personal responsibility. There are several churches that are going to meet Sunday, some of them with elderly population. I know you're a man of faith, it's like very clear about that. But how do you feel about that? Is that responsible? And the second thing, I had a chance to just visit with some Kroger cashiers. And some of the stories are just unbelievable. $665 of meat, 32 jars of peanut butter. People really almost creating scarcity because of what they're doing. All like you said, many Tennesseans are going to do the right thing. We have some people who are not particularly active.
Yep. I'll answer your second question first. And for those who couldn't hear, the question was about gatherings and specifically churches and grocery stores and people who panic buy and hoard. I talked to the head of the Grocers Association in our state, and we talked about the food supply. And he and grocers all across Tennessee have assured me and us that we have a stable and secure food supply chain. There is food. There is a food supply chain. There is a stability to that and a certainty around that. But the one thing that does disrupt that, even if it's temporarily and even if it creates a real challenge for the people who have to live with that temporary disruption, the thing that disrupts it is panic buying and hoarding and inappropriate behavior around the food chain. And where that happens, we need to bring that to light. You know, I'm a strong believer that people generally will want to do the right thing in these settings. We need to remind people. Oftentimes, they just don't think through that their individual behavior may, in fact, cost someone else their life. And that's the reality of what we're dealing with here. So churches that continue to meet and gather with elderly and putting groups of people in the same setting, quite frankly, they're risking people's lives. And there are ways to worship and there are ways to serve without congregating people. And I'm urging and challenging churches to do just that, because I do believe that anytime any business, any organization, any individual creates environments where people are congregating in big numbers, they're putting people's lives at risk. And we need to continue to get that message out there. We need to continue to remind Tennesseans that the only way we will do this is if we do this all together. I've been generally encouraged with behavior change, and as we see that happen across Tennessee, we need to encourage it. Where we see it not happening, we need to bring it to light.
Governor Lee, you have asked schools to close. What about daycares? Because those workers may be in some of the same concerns as teachers.
Yeah, so I'm talking to governors all across the state all across the country about how they're dealing with daycare. And when a school closes, we have real serious daycare issues. We're working with daycare centers. As you know, we announced the other day that we're pushing out through our Department of Human Services $10 million to assist daycare facilities that we currently are currently in contact with and that we have a connection to, that we oversee from the Department of Human Services. We are pushing $10 million out to those daycare centers to address the challenges that they face. So it's important that daycare centers, determine ways to keep children in groups of 10. We're actually talking to officials about utilizing schools for daycare centers in a way that we can limit the number of children in a classroom and not have children congregate, but provide opportunity for parents to continue to go to work. It's a real crisis for people who suddenly find children at home when they both work, or if it's a single parent and they're off working. We're also working with the faith community and I have said before, and through our Office of Faith-Based and Community Initiatives, we're imploring churches to adopt a school that's closed, if it's in your community, and to work with the parents and the families in those schools to assist in directing children to appropriate daycare that will provide safety and security for the kids, but at the same time, safety from the disease through social distancing. So it's a big topic across this country, and we're working to address it.
Governor, you're using your authority as governor to implore people, cities to do these things. But, for example, churches and other things, at what point could it become necessary for you to step in and say, no gatherings over X amount of people?
Yeah, so we're never going to be able to mandate people's behavior in their homes and in their yards and in their neighborhoods. Because you never can enforce behavior that you mandate. But nothing is ever off the table. I think we all know that. We don't know what's coming. We don't know the enormity of this crisis. There are decisions that we make today that we might not have made a week ago, and there may be decisions that we make in 2 weeks that we wouldn't make today. And I will say this too: there is a right time to make decisions. That's the real difficulty in discernment. But I believe to the degree that we can curb behavior and change behavior and find responsible behavior taking place across our state, to the degree that we can do that without mandates, it's better for everyone. So that's going to be our approach. When people don't respond to mandates, then obviously they force officials to consider other options. But there's a real balance between preserving the economy and not the economy. When we talk about the economy, we're talking about people who don't get a paycheck because their restaurant closes. my daughter works in a restaurant that closed. She lost her job, which for her, she's a single, she has a lot of resources to support, family support, to take care of her. But she also reminded me of two workers in her restaurant, a married couple who have 4 children, and the day that restaurant closed, they both lost their jobs. And they're in a very difficult position today because of the closure of that restaurant. Now, every day that we can keep a business open and that business accepts the responsibility of appropriate social distancing and protecting their employees from the spread of this disease, every day that we can do that, we strike the right balance between preserving the economy to the degree that we can and protecting our citizens from this disease. And that's the efforts that we're going to be making going forward. Joel.
Governor, yesterday the New York Times reported the Trump administration has apparently asked states to stop sharing unemployment data for fear of freaking out markets. Your administration has continued to share that at least this week. Will you comply with that request?
Yeah, I haven't. The president hasn't made that request of me or our administration. So, I'd be happy to look into that. But I think unemployment data can be helpful for a number of reasons. So we haven't had that conversations. But
will you buck that if that is asked of you?
Well, I always, if someone's going to ask me something, I kind of want to know why they're asking me to do it and what the reasoning behind that is. And I'm always willing to listen to reasons for doing things. So I want to listen. If the Trump administration is requesting us to do something, there may be likely a very valid reason for that. But we'll have those conversations.
Governor, your recent executive order eliminates the waiting period for unemployment benefit, and it also allows people who have been diagnosed with COVID-19 to qualify even if they're going to go back to work. But I'm wondering, what else can the state do to help these people in the long term, especially those people in the certain industries that lost their jobs and may not know if they're going to come back?
Well, there are unemployment benefits, as you say. There is temporary assistance for needy families. We have raised the threshold of, that we've raised the threshold of the amount of money that a family can earn and still receive TANF funding. That is in assistance to the traditional TANF funding that is underway. We're working with the federal government to loosen the restrictions and the regulations around SNAP benefits, which are a supplemental nutrition assistance program for needy families. We are providing small business loans for small companies that employ many of these workers that we want to keep from losing their jobs. Those business loans are up to $2 million per business. And by the way, they apply for nonprofits as well, because we need our nonprofits to be out there doing the work that they're doing. We have, in this approved budget that the legislature passed, we've pushed $200 million out through a grant process to every county in Tennessee and to every municipality in Tennessee. So those $200 million will be able to be used for targeted relief programs in individual cities and counties, because we know that what's happening in Giles County is really different than what's happening in Shelby County, and so the needs there are different, and those individual leaders can make decisions about relief for their folks. And there is a federal package of relief that is making its way through Congress that will be substantial. Governors are advocating for block grants with regard to that relief. Now, whether it'll come that way or not, we're certainly asking for it, because we want to have as much flexibility as possible around the billions of dollars that will be flowing to states. Those are a number of things that we're going to be doing to try to alleviate the economic impacts. And the conversation we had just a minute ago about balancing that closure of businesses with mitigation of the spread of the disease, that's something we're working really hard to keep as many people as we can employed for as long as we can, and at the same time keep our public safe. I have a conversation with the federal delegation today. Sam, go ahead.
You talked rate on sales taxes and thinking about the drink taxes, I mean, would that not be a good place to start?
So what we do is we don't take any idea off the table. We are standing up in our administration an economic task force to begin to look seriously for the months ahead at how it is that we can provide targeted relief. Obviously, the legislature weighed that and determined that that was not the best way to go. But there are a lot of alternatives that we can consider, and some of them there are. In this kind of a situation, you look at 10 options, 10 good options, and you choose which is the best. So we're going to be looking for the best options that provide for financial stability for our state and at the same time provide for targeted relief for businesses.
By the time the decision is made, though, are you concerned that those businesses will no longer exist?
We make decisions every hour, Sam, about what we're going to do for individuals and for businesses and for organizations across the state. This state government is moving in rapid speed, just like the federal government is, and we're pleased with the progress that is being made, and we are seriously concerned about every single small business in the state, and we're going to make decisions as rapidly as possible as we can to help them out. You want to do?
Go ahead and open it up to the phone. If you would be able to state your name and your outlet, and then proceed with your question.
Hey, Governor, it's Natalie. I wanted to follow up on the clarification about what exactly you all are requesting from CMS. Is it an 11:30 class like Florida, Washington has received? And if so, that waiver does not actually proceed to the uninsured.
I heard almost all that question, Natalie. If so, that question
Our conversations with CMS and what we're doing through the uninsured.
The question is, what are we doing with regard to conversations with CMS and the uninsured? So we are in the process of talking with and asking for some clarity so that we can make a request for a waiver that would allow us to use Medicaid dollars to serve the uninsured population for treatment around COVID-19. It would be targeted treatment for the uninsured that's specifically tied to this particular disease, and we're in the middle of that conversation. Right now, we're trying to get clearance and guidance from them so that we can make the appropriate request.
Have you all applied for any kind of waiver with that, or do you know the name of the program or waiver you all are seeking?
Yeah, if I had the TennCare director up here, we could get that detail, but I don't know the name of the waiver program associated with. I just know that is the conversation with CMS to accomplish that for the uninsured in our state.
Thank you.
Just a minute. Let's keep on. We'll get back to the room in a second.
Any others on the phone?
Governor, it's Kim. My question is about last night, lawmakers failed to pass a bill that would make it easier for local officials to meet electronically rather than in person. I'm curious what has been your response or what legislative leaders in your administration is planning to do to maybe help out local governments right now who are counting on that bill to make it through the next couple of weeks.
Yeah, so the challenge there is to provide for local jurisdictions, local counties and local municipalities to meet and to govern, to do so in a way that that provides open government, which is incredibly important. We need to be able to balance that, and not balance. We need to provide open government and at the same time provide logistics for these governments to meet in the midst of this crisis, so they don't gather together in groups that create a public health hazard. We are currently working with the Attorney General's office, with the Comptroller's office, through our office to try and determine a way that we can construct an executive order that will accomplish all of that. And when we feel comfortable that those all three of those pieces are accomplished, then we think we're going to be able to give some guidance and opportunity for local governments to meet in the midst of the crisis.
Would that be like an extension of what you did on border patrol yesterday?
It would be similar in that we the border parole is a little bit different in the requirements around the open government there, but it would be similar. We're looking exactly at how we uphold that requirement and obligation we have for open government and allow these folks to meet at the same time.
Thank you.
You talked yesterday about using some of the closed rural hospitals. Are you making any progress on getting any hospitals reopened that have recently closed?
Well, the executive order that we issued yesterday actually changes the regulatory rules around hospital beds and which beds can be utilized. So once we've signed that executive order, then we have access to additional hospital beds as a result of the loosening of those restrictions. And some of those may come in these rural hospitals. So, yes, we're in the process of assessing where those beds are and can we utilize those. As I reported yesterday, we have about double the capacity of available licensed beds in this state than what we're currently using. It's actually over double capacity. They're not all staffed. In fact, the majority of the excess capacity is not staffed for obvious reasons, and that's a challenge that we will be meeting in the days ahead. But the executive order yesterday actually addressed that too, restricted regulations on healthcare providers so we can improve the number that will be available to staff those open beds. So there's an all-out effort to find beds and equipment and healthcare workers, and we're encouraged on all those fronts.
Let's go back here.
There's a lot of downtown business owners that are questioning why there hasn't been a state mandate shut down at restaurants and bars. Do you see that in our future, and why hasn't that?
Yeah, so I addressed a little bit of that earlier, but I'll put it differently. Mandating the closure of a business, it means mandating the elimination of a paycheck for hardworking Tennesseans who have families and obligations to meet. It's a very serious thing to mandate the closure of a business. We also have a very serious disease that is potentially affecting the lives of Tennesseans, and there's a tremendous balance in mandating the elimination of paychecks and mandating behavior to minimize the spread of this disease. That is why that is not an easy decision, and why we will take it day at a time moving forward, because we want to have that right balance, and that's why we have not mandated closures of businesses to date.
Do we have any questions for the leadership before we wrap up today?
I'm a little bit confused at how we suddenly went from a week ago not recognizing that there was a reason for temporary recess. You guys talked about the tornado, but last Thursday said that it was important to keep maintaining business as usual. But then suddenly on Sunday, it sounds like there was a meeting off-site, possibly at the governor's residence, that expedited this 5-day plan. Can the leadership talk about that at all?
I'll make one comment, and I'll let you speak to it. One of the things I've found in the last 2 weeks is that things change daily, and that what we knew today is not what we will know tomorrow, and that the decisions that we make this week may easily be different than the decisions that we make next week. I'll say that for myself and for changes that we have advocated for along the way, but I'll let speakers address.
Thank you, Governor. Joel, as we kind of had this question from you, I think almost every single day this week, the response doesn't change. So we've been looking to reassess and monitor the situation on a daily basis, sometime hourly basis, and you make the decision that you do at that point in time that you think's best to continue. As you know, we have said that time and time again. On Friday, we worked with the Lieutenant Governor's office about with the interns, about people who are over the age of 60, and we continue to evaluate the situation as it's evolved. And it's evolved even since Sunday, since last week, since Monday this week. And so we will continue to assess and continue to go forth. we wanted to make sure that we fulfilled our constitutional duty as well. And so one of the things that we talked about was about making sure that we could pass a balanced, conservative budget that will allow us the opportunity, in case something happens, we don't get back in June, to fulfill our duty until we can get back, so that the state of Tennessee can continue to move forward, and allowing the governor to have the capability within the budget to protect Tennesseans, their communities, and do what he feels like he needs to do as he monitors and assesses the situation.
Let's let Governor or Lieutenant Governor McNally answer.
I'll be real brief. We have to maintain flexibility. As Speaker Sexton said, the decisions we make today, we find that we have to alter tomorrow, and we have to be flexible. Originally, there were just a few cases, and gradually that increased, and as it increased, we increased our ability to close earlier. And first we started letting off the interns and people that had pre-existing conditions or were elderly, and we kind of moved down the line there. But thank you.
Final question, Sir.
So what will happen with the city employees during this recess? Are they going to be able to work from home? Are they going to still get paid? Like what's going to be the issue for them?
I can only speak for the Senate side, and we intend for them to work from at home, to use their iPads to access email, to keep up with constituent requests, and to refer people if they want to meet, say, to ask them to just give me a call at home, and I'll be available most of the time at home. But I'll let Speaker Sexton let you know what they're doing on the House side. And they will be paid. It will be work from home pay.
Let me just reiterate, as we've gone through this process from whatever day you want to start till now, we have been in constant communication with the governor, with his administration, with the lieutenant governor, and our House leadership and Senate leadership on how to progress as we move forward. It's been a wonderful experience to be working with someone like the lieutenant governor, trying to make the best decisions that we can make as a General Assembly as we move forward. The decision that we've made is in conjunction with what the Senate has made as far as allowing the employees to work from home as we continue to go from that scenario. And we will continue making those decisions as we go forward. At the end of the day, we are working in unison with one another and making those decisions jointly as we go forward. And we will continue to do that as we move forward, as well as continuing to provide the leadership that the governor needs of us, or the opinions, and supporting him in anything that he does to protect the citizens of the state of Tennessee.
Governor, do you want to conclude, and we'll have to adjourn?
I did want to mention one thing. Tennessee and the United States and all the countries throughout the world are at war with this virus, and the people on the front line this time are the healthcare workers and people involved in public safety. And please keep them in mind as we go forward, and certainly their prayers for them and anything you can do to help their families, whether it's helping with taking one of the children while the healthcare workers at work, just anything you can do to help. But thank you. Governor.
Thank you. Thank you again for all being here. I want Tennesseans to know that those of us on this stage, along with folks all across this state, are seeking wisdom and discernment about very difficult decisions that impact the people of Tennessee. And we also encourage every Tennessean to do the same. We do know that we will get through this. We do know that we will move so in a way that protects our citizens and that mitigates the impacts on them to the degree that is possible for us. But that really is up to Tennesseans, and we encourage you to be a part of that. We encourage you to pray for your neighbors who lose their jobs, who are in a very difficult financial position, or who are sick, or who in the future may lose a loved one. and to pray for your leaders who do seek that wisdom and discernment that decisions will be made that will be in the best interest of all Tennesseans. We will resume on Monday with communications more around the disease itself and what our state is doing through our Departments of Health and Human Services and Labor and Workforce to provide an environment that is attacking this COVID-19 disease. But we will close our comments today for now. Thank you very much for being here.
All right, you're listening there to Tennessee Governor Bill Lee's daily news conference on the state's response to coronavirus. He wants to avoid mandates, and that would be a last-case scenario, encouraging people to stay at home, etc. He hopes that people will follow the guidelines on their own. Keep it here on News 4 for live updates, and you can always follow along on WSMV.com and on the News 4 app.
Chance at romance finale.
All right, we finally get to find out who they chose. So first, Chloe is up. Chloe, you know who you picked.
Yes.
Your man is about to step out. All right.
This is an NBC News special report. Here's Lester Holt.
Today's update on the coronavirus pandemic, the latest numbers are as follows. There are now more than 14,000 cases nationwide, with more than a third of those in New York State alone. 205 deaths so far in this country, and of course, we know the numbers sadly will rise as testing continues to ramp up. And a big development today, the Trump administration announced that the tax filing deadline will be postponed by 3 months. No longer is April 15th tax day, it is now July 15th because of the crisis. Today's White House briefing will be beginning in a second or two. Some familiar faces are up there and a few faces we haven't seen at one of these briefings before, including the Secretary of State. Governor Cuomo has been wrapping up his briefing of New York State. He doesn't quite have a shelter-in-place order a la California, but he essentially is announcing all but that at that point. He was even talking at one point saying, look, it's sending a message to young folks that may be playing pickup basketball. You can't play basketball and stay 6 feet away from each other. Well, you can. You're not going to do it very well. The point being, they're trying to take every measure possible in New York State. I want to read you one quote he said. He says he's going to continue. All of these measures he's been announcing is about as the cases go up, he wants to tighten the valve. As the cases go up, tighten the valve some more. And if the cases keep going up, there's a point he says you've got to close the valve. So we're not quite at closing the valve, but it's as close as we've come yet. That's at least in New York State. And now here's the president.
Thank you very much. I had a very good telephone conversation, extremely good, with Senator Schumer a little while ago. We're working on various elements of the deal, and the Democrats are very much wanting something to happen, and the Republicans likewise are very much wanting something to happen. And I think it will. I spoke at length with Mitch McConnell, and there's tremendous spirit to get something done, so we'll see what happens. But my conversation was very good with Senator Schumer. I thank you all for joining us, and I'd like to begin by providing an update on what we are doing to minimize the impact of the Chinese virus on our nation's students. With many schools closed due to the virus, the Department of Education will not enforce standardized testing requirements, very importantly, for students in elementary through high school for the current year. They've been through a lot. They've been going back and forth, schools open, schools not open. It's been all standardized testing, and, you know, we're not going to be enforcing that, so I think you can let the people know. I think probably a lot of the students would be extremely happy. Some probably not. The ones that work hard, maybe not, but it's one of those things. Unfortunate, very unfortunate circumstance. We've also temporarily waived all interest on federally held student loans. They'll be very happy to hear that. And I've instructed them to take that action immediately. And today, Secretary DeVos has directed federal lenders to allow borrowers to suspend their student loans and loan payments without penalty for at least the next 60 days, and if we need more, we'll extend that period of time. Borrowers should contact their lenders, but we've given them very strong instructions, so we've temporarily waived all interest on federally held student loans. That's a big thing. That's going to make a lot of students very happy. And we have more to come on student loans, more good news for the students, but we'll do that at a different time. This morning, the Treasury Department also announced that we're moving tax day from April 15th to July 15th, so we're moving it out to July 15th so that people will have time and people will be able to, hopefully by that time, we'll have people getting back to their lives. Families and businesses will have this extra time to file with no interest or penalties. We're getting rid of interest and penalties. However, if you have refunds or credits you would like to claim, you may still file. In other words, you can file early if you are owed money by the IRS. Other than that, we're moving it all the way out to July 15th. No interest, no penalties. Your new date will be July 15th. Today, our team will also provide an update on our continuing effort to prevent the transmission of virus across America's borders. And I watched what's been happening in California with Governor Newsom and this morning with Governor Cuomo, and I applaud them. They're taking very strong, bold steps, and I applaud them. And we're all working together. We're working very closely together, including those two governors. But I would say, based on the call, the media was there. I think we can say that with respect to virtually every governor on that call. I think every governor. We had almost all of them, if not all of them. And I would say that you could see for yourselves that the level of respect and esprit de corps working together was extraordinary. There was nobody angry, nobody upset. We're able to help them, and that's what we're all about. We want to help. We're doing things that a lot of people wouldn't be able to do. But the relationship with governors and states is, I think, very extraordinary, especially under the circumstances where this just came upon us. We're working with Canada and Mexico to prevent the spread of the virus across North America very closely. You heard what we did yesterday with Canada. And Secretary of State Pompeo will be making a statement in a little while having to do with Mexico and the border. And Chad Wolf will likewise be making a statement. There's a joint comprehensive effort in collaboration with our neighbors. The measure and all of those measures that we're putting in place will protect the health of all three nations and reduce the incentive for a mass global migration that would badly deplete the healthcare resources needed for our people. And so we are working very closely with Mexico, very, very closely with Canada. The relationship's never been better. We're all working for toward the same goal. Our nation's top healthcare officials are extremely concerned about the grave public health consequences of mass, uncontrolled cross-border movement. And that would be mostly, and even beyond, but mostly during this global pandemic. Every week, our border agents encounter thousands of unscreened, unvetted, and unauthorized entries from dozens of countries, and we've had this problem for decades. For decades, you know the story, but now it's with the national emergencies and all of the other things that we've declared, we can actually do something about it. We're taking a very strong hold of that. And we have before, but this is now at a level that nobody's ever approached. In normal times, these massive flows place a vast burden on our healthcare system. But during a global pandemic, they threaten to create a perfect storm that would spread the infection to our border agents, migrants, and to the public at large. Left unchecked, this would cripple our immigration system, overwhelm our healthcare system, and severely damage our national security. We're not going to let that happen. So we have a lot of information, and they'll be discussing that in a moment. To confront these public health degrees, the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention has decided to exercise its authority under the Title 42 of the U.S. Code to give customers of border protection the tools it needs to prevent the transmission of the virus coming through both the northern and the southern borders. So we're treating the borders equally, the northern border and the southern border. It's being treated, they're both being treated equally. A lot of people say that they're not treated equally. Well, they are. As we did with Canada, we're also working with Mexico to implement new rules at our ports of entry to suspend non-essential travel. These new rules and procedures will not impede lawful trade and commerce. Furthermore, Mexico is taking action to secure our own southern border and suspend air travel from Europe. So we're coordinating very closely on the air travel going to Mexico and then trying to come into the United States. The actions we're taking together with our North American partners will save countless lives. At the conclusion of my remarks, Secretary Azar, Secretary Pompeo, Secretary Wolf, we're going to be also taking some questions with Tony and Deborah, who you've gotten to know very well. But they'll be discussing certain things, and I think you'll find them of great interest. We're going to be providing tremendous amounts of detail over the coming days, but a lot of it will be provided right now if you'd like to find out about it. There's been a week of resolute action, tremendous relationships have developed with people that frankly didn't get along, people that didn't like each other. They're now working together and maybe even in some cases learning about each other and liking each other. It's a nice thing. I invoked the Defense Production Act, and last night we put it into gear. We moved the National Response Coordination Center to the highest level of activists. I mean, if you take a look at what we did, the level of activation has been increased to a grade 1 level, which is the highest level. We're providing historic support to small businesses and to the states. The states need support. Normally, they do this themselves, but because of the magnitude of it, the federal government has gotten very much involved in terms of getting the equipment they need. So we're helping them. It's a responsibility they have, but we are helping the states a lot. That's why the governors, I think, in every case have been impressed and very nice. We enacted legislation guaranteeing paid sick leave for workers at no cost to employers. And I think it's very important. So they get paid sick leave at no cost to employers. We're accelerating the use of new drug treatments. We're advancing legislation to give direct payments to hardworking families. Throughout our country, Americans from all walks of life are rallying together to defeat the unseen enemy striking our nation. In times of struggle, we see the true greatness of the American character, and we are seeing that. A lot of people are talking about it. We're at 141 countries from what they're telling me, and some of those countries are really working in a unified manner, and they're working very unified with us, almost, I could say, a good number of them. Doctors and nurses are working nonstop to heal the sick. Citizens and churches are delivering meals to the needy. Truckers are making the long haul to keep shelves stocked. We've been dealing with the big stores and the big chains, Walmart. They've been fantastic, and others. They've all been fantastic. We've made it much easier for them to stock in terms of travel and travel restrictions. We're lifting restrictions so they can get their trucks on time. You're seeing very few empty shelves, and yet the amount of volume that they're doing is unprecedented because people want to have what they have to have, what they feel they have to have. And they're also buying in slightly smaller quantities, which is good because we're not going anywhere. We're going to be here. So I want to thank all of those very great companies for working so well. Americans from every walk of life are coming together. And thanks to the spirit of our people, we will win this war. And we're winning, and we're going to win this war. America will triumph, and America will rise higher than ever before. We'll be stronger than ever before. And we've learned a lot. We've learned a lot. We've learned a lot about relying on other countries. And I can say that I think in both a very good and a very bad way. Some good things came out of it, and some not so good things came out of it. So I'd like to move now to invite our team to provide information on the new measures to prevent viral spread at our borders. And I'll start by asking Secretary of State Pompeo to speak. He's doing a fantastic job, and like everyone else, he's been working very, very long and very, very hard, and he's doing the other more normal jobs of a great Secretary of State, but he got tied into this like everybody else, and he's been really doing a fantastic job. Mike, please.
Thank you, Mr. President. Before I address the efforts that we've been engaged in to push back against the Chinese virus, I want to assure the American people that, as President Trump just said, your State Department, your entire national security team is staying focused on the other diplomatic challenges around the world. Those include reducing risk to America from Afghanistan, holding the Iranian regime accountable for its malign activity, and our counterterrorism efforts against ISIS remain a priority for our team. Our number one priority across those mission sets remains the protection of the American people. The President and our team are very focused on it. I'll take this moment, too, to thank my team, State Department team, who is working long hours all around the world to take care of Americans who are stuck at places around the world. I'll talk about that more in just a minute. You've all seen Dr. Birx with me, State Department officials who's doing great work, but I want to give a shout out to all of the State Department team here in Washington and around the world that are working overtime to help us push back against this pandemic. Under the President's leadership this week, we've taken two important steps. First, as President Trump announced on Wednesday, the United States and Canada jointly agreed to restrict all non-essential traffic across our border. This decision goes into effect tonight at midnight. The restrictions will be reviewed after 30 days, and they exclude traffic and movement across the border for work or other essential reasons. We're grateful to have such an outstanding friend to the north who is committed, as we are, to defeating this virus. I also want to announce today that the United States and Mexico have agreed to restrict non-essential travel across our shared border. Both our countries know the importance of working together to limit the spread of the virus and ensure that commerce that supports our economy continues to keep flowing. Here, too, the United States is glad to have a friend who's working side by side us in the fight. Secretary Wolf will talk a little bit more about the details of how we're working alongside our partner in Mexico to keep our southern border safe and secure as well. On another note, yesterday the State Department issued a Level 4 global travel advisory. This means that all international travel from U.S. citizens should be avoided. In countries where commercial departure options remain available, U.S. citizens who reside in the United States should arrange for immediate return to the United States unless they're prepared to remain abroad for an extended time. If you choose to travel internationally, your travel plans may well be severely disrupted. And finally, I want to talk about the disinformation that people are seeing, both on Twitter and around the world, some of it coming from government, some of it coming from other individuals. Just urge everyone, as they're seeing information that at one time suggested somehow this virus emanated from the United States Army, this information about lockdowns that are taking place. Every American, indeed people all around the world, should ensure that where they turn to for information is a reliable source and not a bad actor trying to create and flow information that they know is wrong. This is a tough fight. The American people are tougher. Our diplomatic teams are working around the clock to help them keep safe both home and abroad. And we're showing once again the global leadership that America has always delivered. And it's been great to see countries around the world rally behind what President Trump and our team are doing. Thank you.
Thank you, Mike. Thank you very much. And we'll take questions right after this. Chad Wolf, yes?
Right behind you. Well, let me start off by thanking the President and the Vice President for their continued leadership and commitment for protecting the American people during this crisis. Early on, the President, again, took unprecedented actions to restrict travel from areas affected with the coronavirus. And to date, DHS has screened over 200,000 individuals coming back from those affected countries. This has been an immense undertaking, but one that the men and women of DHS have successfully accomplished. Today's announcement is yet another example of the extraordinary steps the administration is taking to ensure the safety of the American public. Before I comment on the CDC order that I'm sure Secretary Azar will later elaborate on, let me first address the progress as Secretary Pompeo and others have made with our Canadian and Mexican partners regarding cross-border travel. As we continue to evaluate common sense measures that reduce risk and prevent further spread, it only makes sense that we have looked at the measures that our neighbors to the north and south are undertaking. And so we've been working closely with those partners since the earliest days of this virus and the outbreak. And again, as the President said earlier this week, and Secretary Pompeo, we've reached an agreement with both Canada and Mexico to limit non-essential travel across our land borders. Let me be clear that neither of these agreements with Canada or Mexico applies to lawful trade or commerce. Essential commercial activities will not be impacted. We will continue to maintain a strong and secure economic supply chain across our borders. A few examples of essential travel include, but certainly are not limited to, individuals traveling for medical purposes, to attend educational institutions, for emergency response, public health services, and individuals engaged in lawful cross-border trade. As the Secretary said, the agreements with both Canada and Mexico will go into effect on Saturday, March 21st. Furthermore, we're also working collaboratively with Canada and Mexico to take decisive joint action regarding individuals seeking entry between our ports of entry. The CDC order directs the department to suspend the introduction of all individuals seeking to enter the U.S. without proper travel documentation. That's for both the northern and southern border. The CDC director has determined that the introduction and spread of the coronavirus in the department's border patrol stations and detention facilities presents a serious danger to migrants, our frontline agents and officers, and the American people. So it's important to note that the department currently apprehends foreign nationals from over 120 different countries around the world, the vast majority of those having coronavirus cases. Many of these individuals arrive with little or no identity, travel, or medical documentation, making public health risk determinations all but impossible. It's also important to note that the outbreak on our southern border would likely increase the strain on health systems in our border communities, taking away important and life-saving resources from American citizens. Tonight, again at midnight, we will execute the CDC order by immediately returning individuals arriving without documentation to Canada, Mexico, as well as a number of other countries without delay. And so, again, CBP is positioned to execute these measures as we continue to keep our borders secure and safe. Before I conclude, let me just wrap up by thanking the brave men and women of DHS, specifically CBP, and across the government for the work that they do day in and day out to keep the American people safe from the coronavirus. The department has a number of frontline officers that have tested positive, as well as others who are self-quarantining, and that I am doing everything that I can to protect these patriots as they continue to defend our homeland during this crisis. Thank you.
Thank you very much, David. Thank you. Yes, Secretary.
Today's announcement is just the latest in a long line of bold, decisive actions the President has taken to protect Americans from the coronavirus spreading across our borders. In January, within 2 weeks of China's notifying WHO about the virus, and with only 45 cases in China, we began screening travelers from Wuhan. Then, over time, as the outbreak evolved, the President restricted travel from China, Iran, and Europe. Our health experts say that these measures have been truly effective at slowing the virus's spread to our shores. Just think about this. Italy and the United States both saw their first travel-related case of coronavirus around the exact same time, the last week of January. And yet we have had precious time to continue our work around vaccines, therapeutics, and other preparations, while Italy has tragically been overwhelmed with critical patients for several weeks now. The President today is taking action to slow the spread of infectious disease via our border. Under Section 362 of the Public Health Service Act, the CDC is suspending the entry of certain persons into the United States because of the public health threat that their entry into the United States represents. This order applies to persons coming from Mexico and Canada who are seeking to enter the country illegally and who would normally be held in a congregate setting like a Customs and Border Protection station. It does not apply to U.S. citizens or lawful permanent residents. During this pandemic, a number of health challenges arise when illegal immigrants arrive at our northern and southern borders and are taken into immigration custody. We're talking about significant numbers of illegal immigrants. From this past October through February, DHS has processed more than 21,000 inadmissible aliens at the northern border and more than 151,000 inadmissible aliens at the southern border. CBP facilities were never designed to hold large numbers of people and to protect agents and migrants from infection during a pandemic, nor to treat them for a novel virus if large numbers are infected. When held at border facilities, these migrants risk spreading the virus to other migrants, to CBP agents and border healthcare workers, and even the United States population as a whole. In such circumstances, the kind of social distancing measures the CDC and the President have recommended are simply not possible. On top of that, any resources that we are using to reduce the risk of infection among CBP agents, healthcare workers, and migrants in these facilities are drawing on an American healthcare system that is already fighting the coronavirus pandemic. That's why the President and his administration are taking these important steps to keep Americans and our immigration system safe from these health risks as part of our whole-of-government approach to combating the coronavirus. Thank you, Mr. President, for the work that you've been doing throughout this crisis to slow the spread of the coronavirus and to keep our country safe.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Tony or Deb, please.
Thank you, Mr. President. So we continue to review the data very carefully from around the globe, as I know many of you are. We continue to see signs that, again, individuals under 20, 19 and under may have severe disease, but majority and all have recovered to date. We still see that same trend. And frankly, from Italy, we're seeing another concerning trend, that the mortality in males seems to be twice in every age group of females. This should alert all of us to continue our vigilance to protect our Americans that are in nursing homes. This requires all of the community, and when you see the sacrifices that many Americans have made, the sacrifices that the service industry has made to close their restaurants, close their bars, and so that the spread is discontinued, and then you really understand how all of Americans must make the same sacrifice. We continue to ask you to follow the presidential guidelines of no groups coming together of more than 10, that if anyone in the household is sick, that everyone quarantines in the household together, and that we continue to focus on those who have the most vulnerability to this illness. Now, to the moms and dads out there that have children with immunodeficiencies or other medical conditions, we don't know the level of risk, and I know you will also protect them in the same way. There just is not enough numbers at this time to really tell them if they're at additional risk or not in the same way that adults are. I don't have any new data. I can see the look on your face of saying, is she seeing something new? I don't have any new data, but I think it's important for us to be as honest with the American people as we can. And when we don't have data, be very clear that we don't know. Finally, no one is immune. I sometimes hear people on radio or others talking about, I'm immune to the virus. We don't know if the contagion levels are different in age groups, but we know it's highly contagious to everyone. Do not interpret mild or moderate disease as lack of contagion or that you're immune. You just happen to have a better immune system and the ability to fight the virus in a way that maybe older people or people with existing medical conditions can't. And that's why it's very important at this moment that all of you carry that message about the sacrifices that many have made, particularly our service providers and our frontline healthcare workers. They are making that sacrifice every day so that every American can move through this well. But we need every American following the presidential guidelines. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Tony, please. Thank you very much, Mr. President. I just want to underscore a couple of things that I've said a few times to this group. You may recall that just a week ago or so, I said the two pillars, the two elements of our capability to contain the infection and the surge of infections in this country rely on two things: keeping infections from coming from without in. We've been very successful in doing that with China and with Europe. Now we have the northern and southern border issues. There's a fundamental public health reason for doing that, because we cannot be preventing people from coming in from one area when they can actually go into the other. So that's an important reason. Understand that there's a public health reason for doing that. The second thing I think is really important is what happened in New York today, what Governor Cuomo mentioned about an hour ago, some rather strong issues that have been addressed with his recommendations. Not recommendations, essentially orders. Now, we have a group of
recommendations and guidelines that are applicable to the entire country. You know them. We've been over them. Yet there are places, regions, states, cities in this country that are being stressed much, much more than the country as a whole. Clearly, one of them was Washington. Another one was California. Governor Newsom made some very important, difficult decisions. Today, Governor Cuomo did the same thing. And I want to say I strongly support what he's doing. And one thing, as a New Yorker myself, for those of you who haven't figured out from my accent that I'm from New York, as a New Yorker, I know what New Yorkers can do. We're tough. I was in New York City on September 11, 2001. And I know what the New Yorkers can do. So please, cooperate with your governor, cooperate with your mayor. It's very important. Thank you.
Thank you, Tony.
That's great. Thank you, Mr. President. The White House Coronavirus Task Force met this morning. We continue at the President's direction to bring the full resources, not just of the federal government, but in full partnership with our state governments, businesses around America, and a partnership with the American people to respond to the threat of the coronavirus. And I know I can speak on behalf of the President with confidence when I say how inspired we are by the way the American people and American businesses are coming together to help defeat this virus in our country. Millions of Americans are putting into practice the President's 15-day guidelines, and we encourage everyone, even those that are not in areas with significant outbreak, to review these guidelines over the next week and more and put them into practice, and you'll continue to do your part. Later today, we'll be talking with manufacturers around the country, and the President and I continue to be inspired by the way American industry is stepping forward. We have businesses around the country that are literally volunteering to retrofit plants to help us meet the needs of our healthcare workers and our healthcare system in confronting the coronavirus. As the President mentioned yesterday, following his decision to put FEMA in the lead, the emergency declaration, we actually met with all the nation's governors from the FEMA National Response Coordination Center. The President and I, our entire team at the federal level, couldn't be more grateful for the efforts of all of our governors in implementing the guidance that is being issued not only from our task force, but also in taking strong measures in their own communities to protect their citizens. We want to urge every American to heed your local authorities, listen to their guidance, and also do your part to slow the spread. We reiterated to all of the governors that the President, by putting FEMA in the lead, will continue to implement a plan that is locally executed, state managed, and federally supported that puts the health of America first. We have received a report today, as the President mentioned, on our legislative team on Capitol Hill. We're working with Republicans and Democrats at this very hour to pass an economic recovery package that the President described, and we hope to see the Congress act on that early next week. On the subject of supplies, we continue to make steady progress on testing. Thanks to the President's involvement of commercial labs, the public and private partnership, more and more Americans are being tested every single day. And tomorrow, Admiral Gua and FEMA will update the American public on the status of testing and our support of state-based testing efforts that are literally expanding by the hour. On the subject of medical supplies, we continue at the President's direction to pursue every means to expand the supply of personal protective equipment for the extraordinary and courageous healthcare workers that are ministering to the needs of people impacted by the coronavirus. We have a policy of procuring, allocating, as well as conserving the resources that we have in our system. And now that the President worked with the Congress to make industrial masks fully available for hospitals to be able to purchase, to be able to use as protective equipment, we're more encouraged than ever about the availability of those important N95 masks to our healthcare facilities. And over this weekend, we'll be announcing a major procurement from the federal government of N95 masks as well. We're also encouraged that we're finding new alternatives to increase the supply of ventilators. We've mentioned that we have a federal stockpile, some 20,000 ventilators on standby, but that doesn't count the tens of thousands of ventilators that are in our healthcare system around the country. But the president has challenged us to work to free up other ventilators from other sources around the country. And there are two different ways that we're doing that. Number one, in our recent discussion with anesthesiologists, we've literally identified tens of thousands of existing ventilators that can be retrofitted and converted to be ventilators for people struggling with the coronavirus. But also, on the president's behalf, on behalf of all of our task force, we want to continue to urge every American and every American hospital and healthcare facility to postpone any elective medical procedures. This will free up bed space, free up hospital capacity for people that are struggling with the coronavirus, and it'll also free up equipment that our healthcare workers need. It is inspiring that we continue to receive reports that businesses around America are donating N95 masks to their local hospitals. Businesses large and small are donating hundreds, in some cases millions of N95 masks. And I know how grateful the president is, and we all are. And let me close by saying, as all of our experts have said many times, while the threat of serious illness to the average American from the coronavirus remains low, every American can do your part to reduce the burden on your health, on your family, the burden on our healthcare system, and especially the threat to the most vulnerable among us by putting into practice the president's 15 days to slow the spread. And as the president said at the outset of his remarks, I know that millions of Americans are doing that just now, and the greatness of the American character is shining forth.
Thank you, Mike. Thank you very much. Okay, thank you. Go ahead.
You had a call with Senator Schumer. He says you've now agreed to invoke the Defense Production Act to actually make those medical supplies that hospitals say are in severe shortage. So two questions. Is that what you're doing now?
It is. I did it yesterday. We invoked it, I think, the day before. We signed it the evening of the day before, and invoked it yesterday. We have a lot of people working very hard to do ventilators and various other things.
So
Yes.
you're using it now to tell businesses
We are
they need to
using
make
it.
ventilators, masks, respirators?
For certain things that we need,
Okay.
including some of the very important emergency. I would say ventilators, probably more masks to a large extent. We have millions of masks which are coming and which will be distributed to the states. The states are having a hard time getting them, so we're using the Act. The Act is very good for things like this. We have millions of masks that we've ordered. They will be here soon. We're having them shipped directly to states.
So you said you were signing this but not invoking it. This is what you said yesterday, and that you would only do so in a worst case scenario. So are we now in a worst case scenario?
We need, no, it's no different other than we need certain equipment that the states are unable to get by themselves.
Good morning, everyone. It's 11:25, breaking into coverage right now to bring you up to speed. I know we've got the president talking right now, but we do have a tornado warning that was just issued. This is literally just in within a couple of minutes ago. As of right now, this tornado warning is going to be in effect for Overton and Putnam County. This is going to be in effect from now until noon. So I want to show you a little bit what's going on with the radar right now. We have a big complex of thunderstorms right now. This is positioned off toward our south, but it's this area right here. And I've been watching this one for quite a while now. And it showed that earlier we had some weak rotation, but within the last couple of minutes, it actually started to show some signs of the tornado actually, some rotation actually beginning to strengthen some. So right now, we're looking in through areas like Rickman, Oklahoma, and then Livingston. This is the area that we're watching. We have the tornado warning that's currently in effect right now. This is moving off toward the east. So for these folks, will want to be in their tornado safe place. You're looking full screen with me right now, so I will put a track on this one. And as far as the speed of this one, this is directly moving off straight toward the east, about 30 miles per hour. So let's put this right here, expanding the view. There it is. So now we have that. So here's a closer look at the timeline of this. So we have the Highland for an arrival time 11:38, and so now is the time that you need to be moving in toward your tornado safe place. So that's about 11 minutes from now. Windletown, you're at 11:52. So if I shout out some of these communities that's again for your area where you're watching right now, and I realize there's a lot of folks again being impacted by this, but this is an active tornado warning right now. Based on the radar and what we're seeing right now, we do have some indication that we do have some rotation with this. So this is why we are going to pop on, stay with you until this threat completely clears. But as far as the rotation goes, right now I'm still seeing some signs that we have just some weak rotation. Look at this. I know we were talking just even a couple weeks ago, folks out in Cookeville still picking up the pieces from the tornado from just a couple of weeks ago. So folks in Cookeville, if you're watching and joining us here this morning, you are in the clear, but the tornado warning again is just positioned off toward the north and east. If you do have some friends in the area, go ahead, give them a call. The tornado warning currently in effect for Overton and Putnam County. So this Putnam County, again, that's right on the northern edge of this, so more for Overton County, as we see the rotation still with that closer look at this. Let's see if I can go in just closer. We can take a look at the current lapse of this, some of those other areas that's being impacted by this tornado warning. Sandy, still going down the line as far as these communities that are being impacted by this. So Sandy, just about at the top of the hour, about noon, that's when you'll see this arriving in your area. So it is moving at a fairly decent clip, straight off toward the east, about 30 miles per hour. As far as what I'm seeing right now, looking at this signature on that, I do see why we went ahead with a tornado warning. Nothing confirmed as of right now. So Putnam County was actually just dropped from the tornado warning. So right now the tornado warning is going to remain in effect simply for Overton. So if you are in Putnam County and you are watching us here this morning, you are in the clear, but I'm still going to continue to focus on folks in Overton County. This is where we have the tornado warning that's in effect still. Moving off toward the east. So again, the signature on this isn't really too from what I'm seeing, it's not really a tight, big rotation, but again, this is something that we definitely need to keep a very close eye on. Looking at the rotation. So yeah, I do see that why we have the tornado warning. There is just a very weak signature right there that we are looking at some potential rotation with this one. So we're definitely going to stay on top of this one. As of right now, this is all a radar indicated tornado. And this is, as of right now, if I switch over and take a look at just the big picture, this is the one that stands out the most to me. We do have some other thunderstorms. I know some folks over the last couple of hours is actually reading through me and picking out toward me that you have some concerns about some of the thunderstorms out there. But looking at the big picture, this right now is going to be the only thunderstorm that's really going to bring us concern. Areas south of 40, I know we do have some loud thunderstorms out there. A big complex, a big swath of rain is moving in this direction, but it's that one in Overton County that is going to give us those problems. So we are still seeing some signs of rotation really on that southern part of that cell. Looks like we have between Highway 136 and Highway 111 that'll be approaching the Rickman area here soon. So if you are watching here in the Rickman area, you need to be in your tornado safe place. Again, we do have a tornado warning that's currently in effect, and for that is for Overton County. So when I first popped on air, that was for the northern part of Putnam County, but that since then has been dropped. Moving in closer, here's a look at this. Rotation doesn't look as significant from when we first popped on air, which is good news. But again, with the tornado warning still in effect, I know we still have a lot of people with storm anxiety and just rattled up with this. We're going to stay on this one. So there's a look at the Rickman. So that is right on that. So if you are in Rickman, you need to be in your tornado safe place right now. And then looking down the road also, if you're watching in Windletown, you also need to be in your tornado safe place. So here's a look at some of the roads that we're looking at, and I just mentioned it was State Route 111 and then 136, so approaching Rickman. So that's where we're watching for this rotation. Can see just a little bit of an inflow there. So that's why we're seeing the winds kind of turning a little bit. Straight off toward the east, so folks also in Highland, Shiloh, Allred, if I'm sounding out your communities, these are the folks that need to be in your tornado safe place. I'm going to take a wider view. And apparently, right now, still looking for some reports. I do have a chat room where we do have some storm chasers, but it sounds like they do have some people that are currently watching this one. But so far, no reports, thank goodness. As we are still seeing some signs of rotation with this, so nothing really sticking out too much for me, but as far as what we're seeing though, behind the scenes though, that's when we are seeing just kind of that weak rotation. Here's a look at some of those communities I was talking about. Again, if you are in Rickman and you're watching here this morning, you need to be in your tornado safe place. But if you look on your screen also for Highland, Wendleton, want to be in their tornado safe place. So where is that? Your tornado safe place is going to be in the lowermost part of your home. If you have a basement, that is going to be the best bet. You want to think also, we think about what happened over the last several weeks, and we saw, together as a community, we saw the damage that was left behind. You want to think about the structure of your home, and you want to think about putting as many walls as possible between you and the outside. So folks that are in Oklahoma, Highland, Wendleton, Sandy, Rennie, you want to be thinking about and moving in your tornado safe right now. We do have the tornado warning currently in effect. That's still going to be with us through noon. Still combing through some reports right now, but there's nothing really coming in right now, which is good. But we still have a small tight circulation that's still going to be a bit concerning. And as we take a look at the bigger picture though, again, yeah, we're still seeing those thunderstorms out there behind this, but the tornado warning for Overton moving eastward at 30 miles per hour. Let's see if I can get another radar update here in just a little bit, but just north of Rickman, looks like it'll pass right through Highway 111 Young Road. Let's see if we can get some street names all the way down here. There's Highway 111. So that's where we're seeing the most rotation right now. Weak rotation, but still is concerning, something that we need to watch. No reports still being indicated as we're watching this all come in. So tornado warning, if you are just now joining us, it is 11:34 on a Friday morning. We do have a tornado warning. When we first popped on air, this was just north of Cookeville. Cookeville, you are in the clear. There are no active warnings in your area. Same deal for Allgood, Monterey. It's just this one cell right here that we are watching that has some rotation with this and other areas. So I do want to, I just think about just what happened just a couple weeks ago. And I know there's a lot of communities just outside here that are still shaken up by what happened from Cookeville. But so this is definitely a close one. But Cookeville, you are in the clear. Folks in Livingston will want to be in your tornado safe place. Overton County, that's where we're still seeing the tornado warning. And that's right now, if I take a look at the big picture, this is still going to be the one lonely storm out there that's giving us the most issues right now. We do have a couple other thunderstorms still just north of the Nashville metro. Looks like we still have some lightning being indicated. That's right on the county line, north of Pleasant View through Springfield, north of Greenbrier. But still, there's nothing that's sticking out right there for me. So nothing severe for those folks. But look at all this rain, though, that's coming through. So we do still see a lot of lightning. Big thunderstorms about to come in. So I'm not really seeing anything right now that's sticking out as far as rotation goes. But Overton County, I'm still watching for you folks there. Looks like the rotation's right near 111 Young Road in the intersection area. Still seeing that there's a pretty significant, some rotation still with this one thunderstorm that we have out here. So again, this is the one tornado warning that we have in effect. This is going to be with us until noon. Hopefully we can see within the next couple of radar scans that this storm will fizzle out, will not hold together any while longer. But until then, we will stay on the air and continue to monitor the situation. And as far as the other thunderstorms out there, I'm still combing through, keeping a close eye on that. If I'm not talking about your thunderstorm right now, it's not that it's not important. It's just that our utmost concern right now is for the storm that we have that's moving through Overton County. Tornado warning in effect until noon. Looks like it's now just passing just outside of Rickman, but still, folks, as I see, this is right over Oklahoma. You're still seeing some rotation. Let's put another track on this, see if we can get an update as far as timing of this. Still maintaining its speed off toward the east, about 30 miles per hour. Expanding that. I just want to make sure I get a really accurate track for you all. And I'm doing on the leading edge of this so I can give you an accurate update as far as give you the more forward heads up. So Wendleton, you're still at 11:52, so just before noon. Sandy, 11:57. Helena, 12:06. Now, once we get to the 12 o'clock hour, though, that's when we should see this tornado warning drop off. But whether or not this storm continue to survive in this type of environment, that's what we're going to be monitoring. Jamestown also, that's another community that will want to be thinking and paying attention to what's happening on the radar. One thing that you can do as you are possibly thinking about moving in toward your tornado safe place, you can download the free News 4 app. You'll have access to a radar, and you can also live stream us there. So if you go down into your tornado safe place and need a way to hear us on the air, especially if power gets knocked out, then you have a resource there. So when we talk about a tornado warning, we're thinking about, again, we saw the damage just a couple of weeks ago, and that was a very large tornado that caused a lot of issues, obviously, but some of that damage, you know, you think about the outside structure and what was left from just that one tornado. I mean, it was those innermost walls that were still standing. So you want to put as many walls as possible as you can from outside and to where you are located. So that's going to be the innermost part of your home. So you want to think like your closet, your bathroom. If you have a basement, obviously that is going to be your best bet. And I always tell people when they go down into the basement, if you are strong enough, you want to also maybe take about the couch that you have in the middle of your living room. If you can, if you're strong enough and you can flip that, that's also a best bet that you can actually just create a teepee just right on top of you. So you want to protect yourself in the event that there's actually some debris or something that's going to protect yourself from the outside. So also protect your body from flying debris on the outside. If you have pillows, blankets, a helmet. Also for young children, something that you want to think about, it's so nice out. It's 70 degrees outside. Kids are probably running around with flip-flops on and things like that. So one thing that you want to be grabbing as you move down into your tornado safe place is going to be sturdy shoes for the kids and for yourself also. If you're in a car, if you are possibly listening to us on our News 4 app, you want to also abandon your car if you can, get out of a mobile home if you can. So still have our tornado warning. I'm actually going to report that we do have some good news. It looks like, just looking at the trend, and this is something I've been watching. I mean, yeah, we came on the air and we had some good rotation on that. It looks like a lot of this is actually beginning to weaken, which is good. So the National Weather Service is actually going to say, we're just going to hang on this just a little while longer until we can actually just say, hey, this one is completely done. But right now we still have some weak rotation, but it looks like it is actually weakening as the storm works east. So hopefully we can get this tornado warning out of here as soon as possible. But I do want to go back and take a wide view at Middle Tennessee and take a look at some of those other thunderstorms. But still, as of right now, the one that we have moving now in through Springfield. So if you're watching us here this morning, I am not seeing anything that really sticks out, but obviously there's a little bit of spin in the atmosphere that could help intensify some of these thunderstorms. So we do have some thunderstorms right now that's parked just north of Nashville, nothing severe. Still watching the one that we have in Overton County. We're looking through Orlinda, Cross Plains, Springfield, just north of Coopertown. North of Pleasant View. So folks in that area, you do have some thunderstorms. I'm keeping a close eye on it. We do have cloud to ground lightning right now and a torrential amount of rainfall. So that's one area that I'm watching. We've also got another thunderstorm that's popping up near Gallatin, right through Castalian Springs, so taking you down to street level. We do see Steam Plant Road. If you are in that area, these thunderstorms are moving on out. And then what we have right here is this big, large area of rain. Now, this was the one that Cody and I earlier this morning we were talking about as we looked through the middle of the day. This was the one that might be a little bit bumpy. especially as we look at the next couple of hours. So looking at that tornado warning in Overton County, looks like they're going to go ahead and cancel this tornado warning here in just a couple of minutes. So I do want to bring you up to speed. If you are just now joining in, I know we have President Trump was speaking earlier about the coronavirus and we are breaking into coverage, but we have an active tornado warning, which is why we are staying on the air and watching this one. But still, I'm looking at this one and I'm seeing, you know, why we first got on the air. There was some rotation with this one, but I do see that this is weakening significantly. So we should see this tornado warning drop off here in just a little bit. But so folks, if you are listening to us here and you are in your tornado safe place, let's just hang out there for just a couple more minutes until we can officially sound the all clear. Of course, we've got News 4 at noon starting up here in just a little bit, so we'll continue our coverage there, both on the coronavirus and also with the active weather that we have moving through. So tornado warning is currently in effect still until noon, and it looks like the National Weather Service just decided that this needs to be canceled. So do you want to bring you up to speed? Let's take a look and take a big tour. I know we've got News 4 at noon here in just about 15 minutes, but I do want to take a big look with you right now. As of right now, there are no active watches or warnings. The tornado warning has been canceled for Overton County. But I will keep a very close eye on this. And of course, if anything changes, I'm here in the Forewarned Storm Center. I will be back immediately to bring you up to speed. So for now, we'll send it back to regular programming.
I was extremely busy, so if you have any question for him right now, could you do that? Because you know what I'd like to do? I'd like him to go back to the State Department, or as they call it, the Deep State Department, if you don't mind. I'd like to have him go back and do his job. So does anybody have any question? Please.
Mr. Secretary,
Yeah, how about you? Only for the secretary.
The exemptions on work travel, can you define that? Is all work, anyone with a work visa can still cross the border? Can you define what, like the measures that you're taking?
It's a great question. We're working, we're very real concerned about H-2A visas, in particular agricultural workers need to get across. We're going to make sure that we do everything we can to keep that part of our economic lifeblood working between our two countries. DHS and the State Department will work together. We want to make sure and keep commerce between Canada, the United States, and Mexico alive, functional, and prepared for the day that this economy bounces back like we expect that it will.
Mr. Secretary, the Mexican government has not announced any travel ban on Europe. Where have you been in touch with them as to when they're going to do this and what it is that they're telling you? And then a second question, they also are telling us and said in a press conference this morning that they will not take back any non-Mexican citizen. Any other third parties will have to, we don't know what will happen to them. So can you address what will happen to those third country immigrants that you are saying that will not be allowed to enter the U.S. and Mexico is saying that they will not be allowed to stay in Mexico either or sent back from the U.S.?
If I may, I'll take the first one and then Chad, I'll give you the second one. With respect to travel into Mexico from outside, I spoke with Foreign Minister Ebrard a couple of times about this. I'm very confident we're going to get to a really good place that protects the Mexican people and the American people from those who might be traveling into places where we've got designations, the Schengen zone from China, so that they're not coming into Mexico and then coming into the United States. I'm very confident we'll do that. We'll make that announcement shortly together.
And again, as we implement the CDC's order, again, we're going to take a number of individuals that cross the border illegally and repatriate them or remove them quickly back to Mexico, back to the Northern Triangle, and back to any other country. So we're going to do that in a rapid fashion. We'll continue to work with Mexico to make sure that Mexican nationals go back as well as other populations.
But are you sending Guatemalans back to Guatemala or Cubans back to Cuba? What would you do with those third countries that are not Mexicans?
So we're doing all of the above. We're going to be sending, again, individuals back to Mexico, individuals back to the Northern Triangle countries, Cuba, Haiti, all of the, again, 122 different nations that we see, nationalities that come across that border. We'll be sending them back individually to their countries, but also working with Mexico to send additional populations back there as well.
And just to put it, you know, when you said before, you said the non-Mexicans going to Mexico. We're not sending them to Mexico. We're sending them back to their own countries, not to Mexico. Why would Mexico take people that aren't from Mexico? We're sending them back, in the case of Guatemala, Honduras, El Salvador, a lot of other countries, they go back to the country from where they came. Okay, and Mike, please.
Secretary Pompeo, on the issue of disinformation, is there any particular locus for this disinformation, or is it diffused?
It's pretty diffused, unfortunately, but we've certainly seen it come from places like China and Russia and Iran, where there are coordinated efforts to disparage what America is doing in an activity to do all the things that President Trump has set in motion here.
Other than what you're doing this morning, what are you doing to fight back?
Lots of things, lots of work. One of the things we want to make sure is the American people go to trusted sources for that information. But we've made clear, we've spoken to these countries directly that that they need to knock it off, that we don't approve of it. And then there are a handful of other things we're engaged in to make sure that the right information is out there and accurate information is given. This idea of transparency and accurate information is very important. It's how we protect American people from something like this ever happening again.
Mr. Secretary, the Peace Corps volunteers.
You want the American people to be coming to trusted sources of information. Does it undermine you at all when the president stands up here and he attacks news outlets calling us untrustworthy?
Somebody else have a question?
The Peace Corps volunteers have the Peace Corps volunteers.
Secretary,
please.
In terms of Americans who find themselves stranded in places where there are no longer flights to get back to the United States, what efforts are being made to help them?
I appreciate that question. So we're doing lots of things. We've had a couple places in particular, Peru and Morocco. I think we've had the first 2, maybe 3 now flights out of Morocco. We're going to work to get people back. We're urging individuals when they can get back on their own. They traveled there on their own. When they can get back there on their own, they ought to try to do that. But we have a team stood up at the State Department, the Repatriation Task Force, that is working each of these instances. So we've heard from individuals, members of Congress. We're trying to get Americans back from these places where air travel has been disrupted. And we'll get that done over time. We'll get it done successfully.
Do you have any sense of how big that problem is? Is there any sense of just how big that problem is? How many people?
We don't know the full scale of it yet, but we think we have the largest number identified, and we're working. If there are those who are watching that are someplace, and you can go on the State Department website, you can log into, I think it's step.gov. You can go step and log in, and we'll track it, and we'll try to get everybody back just as best we can.
Secretary, how long are these border restrictions likely to last along the south and north borders?
Well, they'll last as long as we need to do it to protect the American people from the virus. I couldn't tell you how long it's going to last.
We have you determined whether Iran is responsible for that rocket attack last week?
So
maybe we shouldn't say that.
So let me just get back to you on the answer to that. And what we can say with certainty is this: we've made clear all along that the Iraqi Shia militias are funded, trained, equipped by the Iranians, and we've urged the Iranians not to do that, and we've told the Iranians that they will be held responsible for those attacks when they threaten American lives.
The Peace Corps volunteers that are in 60-plus countries, have they all been returned?
I don't know if they're all back or not yet. I know that they were directed to come back. I know that most of them are back. I couldn't tell you if we have all of them back yet.
And then Secretary Esper's not here, but to get tests to the troops in Iraq and Afghanistan, are you able to give us a progress report on the status of that, if they're all able to get tests?
I don't know the answer to that. I know we have State Department officials, too, who are concerned, want to make sure we get them tests, our team as well, and we're working on that. We've had significant success on that to date. There are a few places we've not been able to get them, but we will. We'll get them there.
How exactly are you going to get those Americans back, and do you have any plans to get the military involved in that?
We're going to use all the tools we can. These first efforts are combined commercial, private flights that will fly in, bring them back to a destination here in the United States. So we'll do that. There are some that will travel back other ways as well. And we've worked with the Department of Defense to say where there is space available, we'll be able to bring them back on those flights as well. It's all government effort to make sure we get them back. They're going to help us every place they can. Secretary Nesbitt, I've talked about it a couple times.
Thank you, Secretary. Question on Iran again. Is there any consideration to relaxing sanctions on Iran during the coronavirus crisis instead of being particularly hard hit?
That's an important question. The whole world should know that humanitarian assistance into Iran is wide open. It's not sanctioned. We've offered to provide assistance to the Iranians as well. I talked with Dr. Tedros from the World Health Organization about this. We're doing everything we can to facilitate both the humanitarian assistance moving in and to make sure that financial transactions connected to that can take place as well. There is no sanction on medicines going to Iran. There's no sanctions on humanitarian assistance going into that country. They've got a terrible problem there, and we want that humanitarian medical healthcare assistance to get to the people of Iran.
But the sanctions themselves, no movement.
We are working to do all the things we've had in place for the first 3 years here to deliver security for the American people.
They know the answer. Iran. They know the answer. Iran. the leaders. They know the answer to your question.
Was it appropriate for the president to call your department the Deep State Department at a time when thousands of diplomats are working very hard around the world to combat this pandemic?
Worked with the president for 3 years now. I know how much he values the people that work on my team. I know when I was the director of the Central Intelligence Agency how much he valued the work we did. I know that he watches our team, Dr. Burks, all the team that's working to push back against this virus, to keep America safe. I know how much he values them.
What a good answer. Yes, go ahead.
Mr. President, can I ask a question? Mr. President?
Very true, too. Go ahead.
Mr. President?
No, behind you.
I apologize.
Please, go ahead.
I have 2 questions. The first is to Secretary Pompeo. The NewsHour has learned that the CDC picked up that there was some sort of virus happening in Wuhan, the coronavirus happening in Wuhan as early as December. When did the CDC start letting other agencies know that there was something in China happening, that this coronavirus was happening? And then when did the whole government approach start to happen?
So I'll let the CDC or Dr. Fauci, you want to talk to that? Yeah, Secretary Azar, please. Yeah.
Yeah, so we were alerted by some discussions that Dr. Redfield, the director of the CDC, had with Chinese colleagues on January 3rd. It's since been known that there may have been cases in December, not that we were alerted in December.
Then, Mr. President, the other question I have for you.
Excuse me, we'll do it in a second. Let Mike,
May I just have one more thing? There's been some discussion about China and what they knew and when they knew it. And I've been very critical. We need to know immediately. The world is entitled to know. The Chinese government was the first to know of this risk to the world. And that puts a special obligation to make sure that data gets to our scientists, our professionals. This is not about retribution. This matters going forward. We're in a live exercise here to get this right. We need to make sure that even today, the data sets that are available to every country, including data sets that are available to the Chinese Communist Party, are made available to the whole world. It's an imperative to keep people safe. We talk about the absence of data sets, not being able to make judgments about what to do. This is absolutely critical. This transparency, this real-time information sharing isn't about political games or retribution. It's about keeping people safe. And so when you see a delay in information flowing from the Chinese Communist Party to the technical people who we wanted to get into China immediately to assist in this, every moment of delay connected to being able to identify this the risk vectors creates risk to the people all around the world. And so this is why it's not about blaming someone for this. This is about moving forward to make sure that we continue to have the information we need to do our jobs.
Mr. Secretary, what message do you think it sends to other countries when you have the President of the United States lashing out at reporters?
I've had my frustration with reporters too. All I ask when I talk to the media is that you listen to what we say and report it accurately, and it's frustrating. It's frustrating when you see that doesn't happen. It's enormously frustrating. We have a responsibility to tell the American people the truth, and those who are reporting on what it is we're doing and saying have an equal responsibility to report accurately.
What message does it send to countries when you're lashing out at reporters?
Being reported, that the news media
I've seen many things at the State Department be reported wildly and accurately on multiple occasions, and I have spoken to those reporters about it each and every time, and I will continue to do so.
Mr. President, Senator Johnson has suggested...
Well, I'd rather have, if you could finish up with the Secretary of
I
State.
think I've worn him out, Mr. President.
Well,
Is everybody finished, Secretary of State?
Let me ask you both, if that's all right. Mr. Secretary, Senator Johnson has suggested that you and the administration may be overreacting. He said, we don't shut down our economy because tens of thousands of people die on the highways. We don't shut down our economies because tens of thousands of people die from the common flu. At worst, 3.4% of Americans will die from this virus, he said. What do you say to people that have that view? That's 11 million people he's talking about.
Well, I can just say the entire world is agreeing with us because they all have their choice, and everybody's doing the exact same thing. We want to shut it out, and we can do that. And we'll see what happens in 2 weeks and 3 weeks. But if we can save thousands of lives, and even millions of lives potentially, you don't know where it goes, but you could be talking about millions of lives. So if you look at the world, I mean, you have some very smart people in the world. You have some smart leaders in the world, and everybody's doing it the way we're doing it. I think we're doing a better job than hopefully most, if not all. We're doing a very effective job, but we'll know better in 14 or 15 days. But, you know, you're talking about hundreds of thousands and maybe more than that, numbers of people. And, we can bring our finances back very quickly. We can't bring the people back.
Mr. President, to follow up on that, there are millions of people out there that share that view, that say, I don't really need to shut things down, I don't really need to stay away from stores, I can go to the beach. And those people making multiple actions exponentially, it's the difference between life and death.
Yeah, I agree with that, but I think I'd like to have Anthony answer that, because to be honest, that's what he does. And we had a lot of very talented people telling us what they think we should do.
Thank you, Mr. President. First of all, I think that's a false equivalency to compare traffic accidents with. I mean, that's totally way out. That's really a false equivalency. When you have something that is new and it's emerging, and you really can't predict totally the impact it's going to have, and you take a look at what's going on in China, and you see what's going on right now in Italy, and what's happening in New York City, I don't think with any moral conscience you could say, why don't we just let it rip and happen and let X% of the people die? I don't understand that reasoning at all.
Okay, so Secretary of State will be leaving. Any other question? Go ahead in the back, please. In the back for Mike.
Thank you, Mr. President.
Excuse me, I didn't call on you. Go ahead, please.
Thank you, Mr. President. Two things. In New York, where cases are doubling every day, they fear that supplies are going to run out in a matter of weeks. Yesterday, Mayor Bill de Blasio called on you to mobilize the military to deliver urgent supplies. Yesterday, he said, quote, "The fate of New York City rests in the hands of one man. He is a New Yorker, and right now he is betraying the city he comes from." I've personally spoken to emergency department nurses who say that they've been told not to wear N95 masks because supplies are so low. So how do you respond to those remarks by Mayor de Blasio?
Well, I
And
just
those
think
nurses
this.
and doctors looking to you. When will those supplies arrive?
I'm not dealing with him. I'm dealing with the governor, and the governor agrees with me, and I agree with him. So far, we've been very much in sync. I guess they're not agreeing with each other necessarily, but the relationship with New York, I love New York. I grew up in New York, as you probably have heard, and the relationship's been very good. And I think government and the governor have been getting along incredibly well with the federal government. Okay.
Question for Secretary Wolf, if I could. Just on illegal entries of people who are OTM, how will the turnback process work? Will they be taken to a common area and then put on a plane and sent back to northern countries or others? I mean, how would that process work?
Again, it's a public health crisis. So what we're trying to do is limit the amount of contact that we have with these individuals, not putting them in Border Patrol facilities, ICE detention facilities, and the like. So it's going to be very rapid. We're going to obviously take them into custody and then send them back to a port of entry or other means. So it'll be very quickly. It won't be the 6 or 7 or 10 days that we currently have. It'll be much more rapid.
But if they are OTM, will they be taken to an airfield
That's
nearby?
correct.
Or?
That's correct.
And sent back on?
Absolutely.
Anybody?
Mr. President, who has Mr. President, the checks to Americans. The bill as proposed creates sort of tiers of checks for incomes. Do you believe philosophically that makes sense?
Well, I believe in a lot of things. I want to get workers' money, and whichever way, the best way to get it. And I want to keep the businesses open too, because without the businesses, they're not going to be getting money for very long. But we're going to be talking.
As it's written, is there enough, or do you want to see it juiced
We'll
up?
do something later. I'm sure. I'm sure.
Mr. President, the Wall Street analysts are predicting that unemployment numbers could skyrocket next week. By some analysts, say as many as 3 million people applying for unemployment, which would be a historic number in a one-week spread. So is a $1,000 check going to cut it? Is that going to be
We're not talking about a $1,000 check. We're talking about much more than that. We're also talking about doing phases. If this doesn't work, we're going to keep doing until we get it going. And frankly, once we get the economy back, and once this enemy is defeated, the invisible enemy, as I call it, once it's defeated, we get the economy back, it's going to all come back to us very quickly. It comes back very quickly. We have a tremendous economy. We do numbers like no other country has ever done before. #1 in the world, if you go back 2 weeks, and still, obviously, but if you go back 2 weeks, #1 in the world by far. That money comes back to us very rapidly. We want to keep it. We want to have it so that when we, not if, but when we win the war with the invisible enemy, when we win it, these companies can immediately start. Not that they have to start rebuilding, which takes a long time. Steve?
But you're confident that those are jobs that'll come back if someone applies for unemployment next week?
What
projections for job losses in March and April are you hearing?
Well, we're looking at different numbers. We have a best case and a not best case, but the big thing is to defeat the virus. Once that virus is defeated, Steve, I think everything else falls in place very rapidly. I think you're going to have a tremendous upswing. A lot of people agree with me. If you look at your stock market geniuses, some of whom are not geniuses, but they think they are, a lot of people think that I'm right about that, that once we defeat the virus, I think you're going to have a very steep, like a rocket ship, it's going to go up and everything will be back. And I really believe we're going to be stronger than ever before. Yeah, go ahead.
Mr. President, on the issue of supplies, you've told governors to try to find whatever supplies they can on their own.
Absolutely.
But some of them are now saying when they go to try to buy them, they're being outbid by the federal government.
Well, you heard my news conference yesterday. So not
those
that, I mean, that
governors
was,
to
that
do?
was sort of yesterday's news. No, that does happen because they want to buy supplies. We want to buy as a backup to them in case they can, and sometimes that will happen. But regardless of who gets them, when they need them, we're getting them to them. Now, we're doing the Production Act. We're doing it very much, and we have a lot of things cooking right now at a high level. Remember this. Nothing like this has ever happened before. Over 140 countries. And you have supply chains that are broken down for two reasons, because they can't supply that much and because people are sick and they can't be on the chain. So you have a lot of interesting things all over the world. You have supply chains that broke down because of the illness and also because of the fact, the quantity. But we're getting it ordered, we're getting it done, and if you just have to, look, some of you were at the call yesterday where I spoke with the governors, almost all of the governors, and every one of them was very impressed with what we've done. Go ahead, in the middle, please.
There are reports saying that the Labor Department has told states not to disclose their unemployment numbers. Do you agree with that decision?
I'd have to talk to him. I would have to talk to him.
Just one more clarifying question, if I could. On the DPA, I just want to be clear. Are you saying that the administration is requiring these industries to create these products or just asking?
You know, so far we haven't had to. It's an amazing thing that happened. We're getting calls from automobile companies. We're getting calls from other companies saying they have plant capacity. They want to make ventilators. They want to make other things. We are literally being besieged in a beautiful way by companies that want to do the work. They want to do the job. They want to help us. They want to help our country. So we haven't had a problem with that at all.
President, how do you help out states and localities that are trying to bid on things like ventilators and other items that are being outbid by the
Well, when they call us, they let us know. If there's a conflict, they will call us and we will drop our bid because we want them to go first because their point of sale. So we've had 4 or 5 instances where literally that was happening because, you know, we're both trying to get stock. And if we're going against, they will call us. The smart ones, frankly, will call us and we will immediately, we want them to buy it because it gets to them quicker if they buy it.
Okay. Do they know that
We're really there. They know that. And it's happening more and more where they're calling and they're saying we're bidding against each other. They want to get it. They'll get it much quicker that way. Go ahead, please.
Mr. President, a question for Secretary Azar. There are labs across the country that don't have the testing supplies they need. What specific actions is the administration taking?
I tell you what.
What specific actions
We inherited
are
an
being
obsolete
taken?
deal and we made a good thing out of it. I haven't heard that question in a while, but go ahead.
Yeah, so first, we're making tremendous progress in terms of lab testing. Tens of thousands of tests are being done every single day, both through the CDC and the public health labs, as well as now through the private sector commercial labs. They're getting to scale. They have supplies. They have high throughput. We do hear anecdotally occasionally of, say, a public health lab or another one that has a concern about this supply or that supply. Through FEMA, we actually are standing up a laboratory task force to answer those questions. Usually it's that the lab people do not understand that there are actually alternative supplies in the marketplace that they are perfectly free to use. We've actually had to put out some common myths and truths about that. For instance, the other day, we were getting calls from governors saying, we don't have swabs, there are no swabs, there are no swabs. Our supply people went in the open marketplace and bought 200,000 swabs in the open market, and I just sent a letter to every governor sending them swabs. So some of it's just they aren't listening or checking with us about all the freedom, all the capacities out there. It's a complex system with 330 million Americans and all of these labs. So sometimes there's a lab that doesn't understand how much flexibility they have and how much supply there is out there. And we're working through the new FEMA Integration Center to help correct that for folks.
Secretary Azar.
Be happy to. How well that's working. Well, as I said, more and more tests are being performed every day. And as we learn about the results that are being reported around the country of coronavirus tests, our experts continue to look at the numbers and see that some 90% of Americans that are tested do not test positive for the coronavirus. And so it can give you a sense of the magnitude of testing that's going on. We have the number of cases that we've reported today, but it's in some cases near to 10 times that have been tested. But let me also emphasize how important it was in answering these questions for governors and local officials that the President stood up FEMA and the National Response Center, where we briefed governors yesterday. Now every governor and their state health departments have the ability to reach out to our regional FEMA administrators. And that's how, as the President said, we're sorting out those potential conflicts between very significant federal purchases and procurements and as hospitals and state governments are purchasing as well. I think the new streamlined system operating now in all 50 states and our territories of governors and states going through their regional administrator for FEMA is going to make it more possible for us to ensure that our hospitals, our healthcare providers have access to what's available on the open market and elsewhere.
Mr. Vice President, you're the head of the task force. You've seen the numbers. You've spoken to average Americans. You're a former governor. What do you say to Americans right now who are watching and who are scared?
I would say do not be afraid, be vigilant. All the experts tell us that the risk of serious illness to the average American for the coronavirus is low. But we need every American to put into practice the President's coronavirus guidelines, 15 days to slow the spread, because the coronavirus is about 3 times more contagious than the flu, according to our best estimate. And you can contract the coronavirus, have very mild symptoms, if any, not even be aware that you have it, and expose someone who is vulnerable to a very serious health outcome. That's the reason why we're encouraging people to avoid groups of more than 10, to not eat in restaurants, but to use drive-thrus, to wash their hands on a regular basis. And particularly, we're going to continue, as the President has directed us, to focus on the most vulnerable population, which are seniors with serious underlying health conditions or anyone with an underlying immunodeficiency. It's those people we need to care for, but it's going to take all of us working together to make sure they're safe.
Mr. Vice President, on the issue of ventilators, Mr. Vice President?
Because you just said that you haven't had to require companies to up their production of medical supplies. But you said last night you invoked the DPA. I'm confused.
When we need something, because of the act, when we need something, we order something. And as you know, 2 days ago, I invoked the act, which was a big step. I'm not sure that it had been done before, certainly not very much. And when we need something, we will use the act. What has happened is, before we even go out, many, many companies, great companies in a totally different business are willing to do things and make things, because that's what they do. They make product. They're willing to make product for us, medical product, that we need very badly for the states, that the states can't get, they haven't been able to get. And you know, most of the states, in no way did they do anything wrong. They were stocked up. They were all equipped. Unfortunately, they've never had a thing like this. So they need help from the federal government.
This is important. You haven't actually directed any companies to start making more ventilators or masks,
I
correct?
have, yes. I have. A lot. And they're making a lot of ventilators, and they're making a lot of masks. Go ahead, please. Go ahead.
Mr. President, partially following up on that, are there automakers right now who are retooling their production facilities to make ventilators or
I can't
masks?
say they are, but they will be very shortly, because we're working with one in particular that wants to make ventilators. They called us yesterday, and we're working on a transaction. They're going to make ventilators. They say they've done it before, which surprised me, but they can do it very easily.
This is partially for you, partially for Secretary Azar. You said yesterday that you had spoken to Carnival Corporation's chairman.
Carnival, yeah.
Yes, and he said that he could donate some ships.
No, not donate. That's not the word donate.
Okay, lend.
He's not giving them. He's going to let you use them.
Okay.
I spoke with Mickey Harrison, who's the president, chairman, CEO. And owner.
And he could lend some ships to potentially be hospitals.
He said to me that he was willing to, if we need ships for helping people, that Carnival would be absolutely willing to help us in Los Angeles, in New York, wherever they may be, in Miami, where they're very big. If we needed something, they would be willing.
Breaking news on News 4.
We're joining you right now. You're just hearing President Trump there speaking in a live conference there from the White House right now. We'll get to that again in just a moment and break down what we heard there. But for now, we do have a tornado warning. We need to kick it over to News 4's Laura Bannon who's watching this. Laura, where's it at?
Hey, you know what? It's actually that same storm that we broke into coverage just a little while ago. So earlier we had a tornado warning for Overton, the storm weekend, and which is why we dropped back into regular programming. And it looks like as the storm moved out across Fentress County, we saw a little bit of a tightening as far as the rotation. So that's why we now have another tornado warning. Still, I've been looking at the reports from the tornado warning that we had earlier. I'm not seeing any reports from that, but let's move in closer. Overton County, if you're watching, I had a couple of you folks actually message me through social media. You're all clear, but it's still this one thunderstorm, again, that's just continuing to cycle, and it's still running into an environment that it's allowing for this to actually see a little bit of spin. So right now, we do have the tornado warning. This is going to go until about 12:45. So right now it is 12:13. So we have about 30 minutes, but just given the situation that we were in just before, I wouldn't expect it to be that long, but still for folks that are in Fentress County, this is far east. I'm looking just about 5 miles south of Jamestown. That's where we're still seeing a little bit of rotation still. So folks in Jamestown back toward Aldart, you want to be in your tornado safe place. We do have a tornado warning, which is why we are currently on air, and we will stay on air until this threat completely clears. So if you're looking on your screen right now, we're looking at some of the closer looks as far as the street names that we have right now. Where I'm seeing this rotation is actually just south of Aldart. So I'm looking at street names for that would be Northrop Falls Road. If you are in that area, have any friends out toward Rugby Pike, Petersford Road, approaching the community of Shirley, you are in the path of this thunderstorm. Again, we do have a tornado warning as of right now coming on to you. I do not see anything as far as confirmation that this have touched the ground, but we are seeing some signals still that there is some type of rotation. Again, just south of Aldart, south of Jamestown, it looks like this thunderstorm is about to move out. I'm going to put a track on this one as far as where I'm seeing that most likely location for the rotation. Again, this is about to move outside of the News 4 viewing area, but if you are just now joining us, we do have a tornado warning for Fentress County. This is the same storm earlier. If you were watching and you were in Putnam County, we did have a tornado warning that was issued, but that has pushed out. But this storm, again, is still maintaining some strength. We have a Huntsville, again, that's outside of the viewing area, 110. So this is going to continue to move over an area where we're not seeing as many as the communities popping up when we do a track on this. But nonetheless, we do have a tornado warning, still seeing some signs that we do have a little bit of rotation. Still looking for folks in Aldart. It looks like actually the rotation isn't as significant. There's a fresh radar update. So I want to go ahead, flip the screen over so we can take a look at the wind. This is something maybe, I call this more like behind the scenes, but this helps us give a really good idea as far as like what's happening under the hood when you talk about the tornadoes. Gives us that rotation, kind of shows us exactly if it's broad rotation, is it's a really tight one. As of right now, I'm still looking at this, and I looked at this thunderstorm as we popped off the air, saw that was kind of weaker, but then it actually looks like it tightened up a little bit. So I'm still seeing a little bit of concern as far as the rotation, but it definitely looks weaker from where we were just even a couple of minutes ago. So that's reassuring, but still we do have a tornado warning. This is in effect for Fentress County until 12:45. I want to review again, if you're in your tornado safe place, that is going to be the lowermost part of your home. If you have a basement, that is going to be your best bet. If you do not have a basement, you want to think about the outer and the structure of your home. Put as many walls as possible. And as you are getting ready to arrive into that tornado safe place, things that you want to be thinking about that you want to grab. If you have a weather safety kit, you want to go ahead and grab that. With children, also as children, again, with the springtime, I know a lot of kids are running around with flip-flops and shorts, enjoying the weather. Make sure you think about the shoes that are on their feet. So I want to have something sturdy in the event that there is some damage from this, but I'm seeing a weaker rotation on this. But for folks in Fentress County, you do want to be in your tornado safe place. Again, the rotation that I'm seeing is now still just south of Aldart, about to move outside of the area. And hopefully we can keep that trend up, that this severe thunders or this tornado warning continues that trend, that it begins to weaken, and hopefully we don't see this beginning to continue to cycle. Going to keep the warning. We're probably going to, so we're still going to hang on to this one. So it's a similar setup, you know, like what we just saw with the last one in Overton County. We had this tornado warning that popped up. It weakened some. We were able to drop that. So I'm thinking this is going to be the similar situation, but looking at the wind part, the Doppler part of that, it doesn't look like it's as significant. But I'm going to continue to keep a very close eye on this one. Tornado warning in effect for Fentress County. I do want to take a big picture look though, because with those thunderstorms out there, it looks like there's just enough in the environment, in the atmosphere, to give it just a little bit of spin and twist with this. So I don't see anything right now that's sticking out. It's just that one storm that's still giving us some problems, which is why we continue to pop back and forth on air. As far as Nashville, I know we do have a lot of folks right now probably watching and tuning in, wanting to know what's going on with the weather. We do have some big thunderstorms, especially out toward the southern part of Davidson County. Not seeing any indication that we have severe weather, but it is definitely noisy, especially in the southern parts of Davidson County. No severe thunderstorm warnings in effect for us right now. Our focus, our primary focus, is going to be the tornado warning out in Fentress County. And this one is moving quickly, so it's more on the eastern part of Fentress County. And this one, again, should be allowed to drop off here shortly, and this one will move outside of the viewing area, but still we'll continue to keep a close eye on this one. It looks like they went ahead, extended this one for a severe thunderstorm warning just outside of the cell for high wind. So folks, if you have friends or family in Oneida, you want to go ahead and give them a call. So we're going to continue this one. We still have some radar indication. I'm looking right here. I do have a monitor right here that we have a chat where we look to see if there's any reports of damage. As of right now, still just looking at a broad rotation, and the good news is that this is weakening some, but this is going to continue until 12:45. Right now it's 12:20. I wouldn't be surprised if this got dropped off here in just a little bit. But I do want to go ahead and let's take a look at some of those street names. Looks like the strongest part of the storm now is still pushing off toward the south and east of Aldart. Can't really call the all clear for you to come out of your tornado safe place just yet. I do want everyone that is in this area and being impacted by this thunderstorm to remain in their tornado safe place until this thunderstorm completely moves through and moves out. So as you're getting ready to move into your tornado safe place, if you do have a charged up phone, you want to go ahead, turn up the volume as loud as possible. Make sure you do have your cell phone and your News 4 app too. You can stream that right there on your phone. Moving out, though, I'm seeing actually that there's another thunderstorm that they're concerned about just behind that. It's these lonely little thunderstorms that are moving into an environment still that's allowing to maybe add a little bit of spin in the atmosphere, but still looking at these ones that are north of Nashville. Right now, there's really nothing that's sticking out to me, but this is one area that requires some attention. This is north of Greenbrier up toward Portland, approaching for folks in Westmoreland out toward Sumner County, north of Cottontown. So that's an area that we'll have to watch. Right now, there's nothing severe that we have, but there's some signatures there that's worth watching near Portland. So I'm going to zoom in and see if I can do a quick track on this one. Looks like it's actually moving outside of Portland. But for folks in Westmoreland, if you are watching here this afternoon, I'm talking to you right now, you do want to maybe think about grabbing your materials if needed for your tornado safety place and start reviewing those plans right now. There's nothing severe as I'm coming to you right now, but I do want to go ahead and put a track on this, and this is something I definitely want to keep a close eye on. We have Lafayette. You are further down the road, about 130. Westmoreland, and this is going to be the next big community that I'm looking at, but there's some that in between that we need to watch for. It's about 1250. That's when I'm thinking that we could be having those thunderstorms in your area. We will have to watch to see if there's anything that helps this thunderstorm to fuel and strengthen some. Coming to you right now, there are no active warnings right now for Sumner County, but this is something we'll need to monitor. Do have another thunderstorm just outside of that area. We will have to watch. But again, gosh, there's so much rain. This is something that we were talking earlier this morning on News 4 Today. Cody and myself were talking about this big swath of rain, another piece of energy that was going to filter in through the midday hours. And that's what we're seeing exactly right now. A whole lot of rain. We do have some bedded thunderstorms. It's loud out there. Area south of 40, that's where we've seen most of the rain. Still not seeing anything as far as concerning that we do have some warnings right now, but gusty wind is the primary concern. Let's circle back around. I want to take a closer look again at this tornado warning that we have in effect, which is why we are staying on extended coverage right now, and we're going to continue to stay on until the tornado warning has been canceled. And I'm thinking that that concern has completely dropped out and cleared outside. So folks in Eldart, I know I gave you a shout out earlier. I'm going to say sit tight just a couple more minutes until we can come outside of your tornado safe place. Jamestown, we were coming on to air earlier with you. If you were in Jamestown and you were in your tornado safe place, it is okay now for you to come out. That thunderstorm has moved outside, but right now we are still going to stay on this one until this tornado warning completely clears outside of Fentress County. But this is really on those eastern fringes just outside for Fentress County. Eldart, still, I want you to be in your tornado safe place, and it looks like we do have a little bit of strengthening happening again. So this is a thunderstorm that just continues to run and allows for this to circulate a little bit more. So as this moves outside of Fentress County, right on the county line, we're going to have to watch for folks in Rugby, Brewstertown, also further down the road, Black Creek, Robbins, and then Elgin. Those are some other communities. If you have friends or family in those areas, go ahead, pick up the phone, give them a phone call, and let them know that there's a tornado warning. There is nothing confirmed as of right now, but looking at the radar, there's still a lot of indication that we are looking at a potential tornado here. Let's see, still looking south and east of Eldart, but still if you're in Eldart, I want you to stay in your tornado safe place. Here's a look at the radar trend within the last 15 minutes. So when I popped on the air, it looked like we did have some significant, enough to warrant the tornado warning for some circulation as this thunderstorm moved off toward the east. Still looking at some signs that we have the rotation. I'm going to pause this right here, and this is when you see these bright greens and these reds color, this is under the hood. This is kind of a deeper look as far as what's happening with the wind portion of the thunderstorm. So right now I'm not seeing, it's looking more like a broad rotation. It's not as strong from where we were earlier, but the tornado warning again was going to continue until we can officially get this one outside of Fentress County, and whether or not that continues to maintain its strength and allow for some more tightening again. So that's why I was saying other areas just outside, like for the Huntsville area, we had an arrival time just about 10 minutes after 1, which is quite a while from now, but friends or family will definitely want to have the heads up as far as what's happening in their backyard and what's going to be approaching. So this thunderstorm again is still giving us a lot of issues. Broad rotation, tornado warnings going to continue for Fentress County if you are just now joining us until 12:45 this afternoon. Earlier we had Overton County. This is that same storm that we're watching that was right through a portion of Putnam County, and that was really tough to come on the air with you saying that there was a tornado warning for Putnam County earlier this morning. That has been canceled. If I expand the view, you can see it is quiet just behind, but we do have some additional thunderstorms that's skirting right along the Tennessee and Kentucky state line, but nothing as of right now sticking out to me that we need to continue with coverage for, and look at that one for those warnings. But then there is still a little bit of spin in the atmosphere that's going to help these thunderstorms. But big picture though, we're seeing a lot of rain, still positioned south out toward southern parts of Davidson County. I know we've got a lot of folks right now probably tuning in on their lunch break right now, or just at home tuning into the coverage because of President Trump that was speaking earlier. And we are currently still in a News 4 at noon typically right now, so that's why we're just going to stay on. But we do see all the rain that's south of Davidson County out toward Wilson County, Rutherford County. Still seeing some big thunderstorms and a whole lot of rain for areas south. That's where we're seeing most of this rain. That's still south of 40, back towards south of 65, or rather driving down 65 Lewisburg. But big thunderstorms like this is definitely a situation where you don't want to go outside and go check out what's happening in your backyard. But nonetheless, now is a good time, especially with a tornado warning that's in effect. If you haven't already, you want to make sure you think about how many ways do I have to receive weather alerts from my home. News 4 app, you can also stream us while you're on the go to get those watches and warnings sent directly to your phone. You can go ahead and customize it based on exactly where you're at. So I'm zooming back into Fentress County, which is why we are on the air currently right now. We do have the tornado warning. It looks like they're going to let this one ride out just for a little while longer, just because we do have some spin out there. Still not seeing or hearing about any reports. I know our newsroom is on top of this and seeing if they're hearing of any reports, but from that thunderstorm, that tornado warning we had earlier, nothing had come out from that one as far as damage. But tornado warning is going to continue from now until 12:45. It is 12:28 this afternoon. We're just waiting for this one as it moves out toward east into the eastern fringes of Fentress County. Moving closer, I'm going to put another track, see if we have, because it looks like it's sped up just a little bit. So I want to make sure that we have all the communities that are getting the information that they need as far as getting into their tornado safe place, and all of some other folks too, giving those heads up for those friends and family. Huntsville, looks like the speed I just mentioned before, it looks like the thunderstorm sped up just a little bit. Earlier we were saying an arrival time at 1:10, so this actually sped up. So that puts your arrival time now at about 12:51, so just a couple minutes, top of the next hour. Jacksboro 1:21 and Norris 1:36 before we will see this again move just outside. But I do want to give the heads up because we do have a lot of neighbors out there in this one area for Fentress County that may be joining us for News 4 at noon that need this information. I know behind that you've got a lot of folks that are dealing with some thunderstorms. Still not seeing anything that's sticking out that would prompt for concern, but we do see those big thunderstorms now moving in toward Sumner County in the corner. So you got some loud thunderstorms for Westmoreland moving in. Let's put a track on that. I think we said earlier it was about 12:45. Zoom out a little bit. But nothing severe. So Westmoreland, you're at 12:41. You've got thunderstorms cruising in. One thing I'm going to be worried about with this thunderstorms that are moving through is going to be for a high wind threat. Outside of that, again, there's still just a little bit of twist in the atmosphere. So we definitely want to remain weather alert for the rest of the afternoon, especially for these lonely thunderstorms that get going. If it gets right into the right combination, it will allow for maybe a little bit of spin. But I know there's still a lot of storm anxiety out there. So just want to make sure that everyone is up to speed and prepared to be moving into their tornado safe place, and be thinking too, you know, while you're at home with your family and with your children right now, think about how you are receiving weather alerts and if you know exactly where your tornado safe place is. And that tornado safe place, we will tell you again, reminding people, that's going to be the lowermost part of your home. So folks that are in Fentress County, still want you to hang tight a little while longer within your tornado safe place. Now, I said within the last couple of minutes, Aldart, I'm going to say now is the time that you can get outside of your tornado safe place. Also for folks in Jamestown, you are in the clear from this tornado warning, but we still have this into the eastern parts of Fentress County before this moves just outside of the News 4 viewing area. So once this completely clears, it looks like that's when they're going to go ahead and keep the tornado warning. But still, with this concern within our area, we're going to stay on the air just for a little while longer. But it looks like we are seeing a weakening trend with this tornado warning that's in effect. So Jamestown, Aldart, I was talking to you just about 15 minutes ago as far as getting into your tornado safe place. It is okay to come out of your tornado safe place, and expanding the view looking behind also. Earlier, this thunderstorm actually started right over into a northern portion of Putnam County and Overton. Still was able to survive a little while longer and aided in just a little bit of rotation, which prompted for the tornado warning. So I was talking to my folks in northern Putnam County. You are safe, no big thunderstorms. It's just this one tornado warning that we currently have that's in effect before this moves outside of the News 4 viewing area. So Jamestown, Aldart, you guys are safe to come out. Looking around, and I'm going to continue on the tour just because we do have some big thunderstorms out there, and this is all lining up right along south of 40. One thing too, if you're going to be out and about, perhaps you have someone that actually had to go to work today. If they're going to be traveling back home here this afternoon, want to give them a heads up that there could be some localized flooding. I'm going to kick it over to Chris Miller over the desk. Do you have new information?
Hey, Laura. No, I'm just watching this too, and was just thinking about the people that are out there in Fentress County right now, as I know this is zooming out of our viewing area there, and I wanted you to run us through again some of these things on the tornado warning. I know you keep saying go to your tornado safe place. You know, we got so many people moving here all the time. Mm-hmm. They're not sure exactly what that is.
Yeah, you know, and it's yeah, there's a lot of people always that are moving into town and that they're not familiar with things like this. And when you talk about your tornado safe place, you do want to think about the structure of your home, Chris. And you know, Chris, you were here a couple of weeks ago and you saw just the amount of damage. And that's why we always say, you know, we want to think about the innermost parts, because you looked at the damage, that's what survived. It was those innermost parts, the closet, the bathroom.
You mentioned that, yeah. We look at some of the wreckage in some of those areas that got it out near Cookeville. The places of the homes, in some cases that were still standing, were those exact areas you're talking about. Mm-hmm. They're near the stairwells, the basement, the closet, the door frames in some cases. So I know when you keep telling everybody to go to their tornado safe place, that's exactly what you mean. And a lot of people who live out here in Fentress County, they've done that before.
Yes, exactly. So yeah, you want to think the structure of your home, you know, and one thing that I think a lot of us learned is, you know, it's how important it is to have multiple ways to receive weather alerts. So if you're joining us right now and you're like, I'm not in Fentress County, think about your family and what you would do if this is in your situation. You want to make sure you have at least 2 ways to receive weather information, whether that be a NOAA weather radio. The News 4 app is going to be another great resource. If you go up on the top left of the screen, you can set up your notifications. It looks like the tornado warning for Fentress County is officially canceled, and that is literally just within the next couple of minutes. Tornado warning for Fentress County has come to an end. I am glued to the radar. If anything changes, I will be back right here on News 4 to bring you updates.
We know you will, Laura. We'll check in with you in a few minutes here, see that activity south of Nashville, too. I want to get back to our coronavirus coverage here. You heard from President Trump just a little bit ago. I know Joe Dubin is standing by live right now, too, because we've been talking about local entertainment venues that have been hit very hard by this. Joe's at Nashville's iconic comedy club, Zanies, right now. They've come up with a unique idea, like so many artists